Hey, right. Good morning, all. Well, where are we? God, 26th of March, 2026. Here with Lord Mayor of London, question time with Sadiq Khan at the London Assembly. It looks like they're going to start any minute. So please share this out. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It really helps me out. I'm only doing this on my own. Be much appreciated. And let's take you over to there now. Feel free to join in the chat as well, or comment down below later on. As soon as the audio comes on, it will come on, all right? Good morning. Then they're just waiting for a few more members to arrive. And just let me know if the sound's all right and the picture's good, yeah? That'd be much appreciated. Just to point out, looks like Susan Hawley's there, which is the main thing. As soon as we get some audio any minute, we'll be going over to them.
Of London, composed of 25 members elected at the same time as the Mayor in order to hold him to account, scrutinise his policies and investigate matters of importance to Londoners. Can I welcome members, officers and the public here in the gallery and those watching on the webcast. This is a Mayor's Question Time meeting of the Assembly, which means that all members are invited to attend and ask questions of the Mayor. In case of an emergency and any need to exit the building, guests seated in the public gallery should follow security staff and Assembly members should follow the meeting clerk. Members are reminded that any electronic devices should not be placed in front of the microphones, which must be turned on to speak and turned off once finished. Can I now ask the clerk to confirm any apologies for absence?
Thank you, Chair. We have apologies for absence on behalf of Assembly Member Moema.
Okay. Any others? None. Before we begin, I'd just like to say on behalf of the London Assembly, and I suspect I can also include the Mayor, that we were appalled to see the shocking arson attack on the ambulances belonging to the Jewish Community Service in North London. All forms of hate are an attack on us all, and we stand with the local community at this particular time. Now, since our last full Assembly meeting on the 5th of March, the Health Committee held an urgent meeting to examine the impact of the measles outbreak. The committee also published its report into private and NHS use of and access to weight loss medication. The Planning and Regeneration Committee explored the risks of overeating homes, published its report calling for more mid-rise developments to tackle the housing crisis, and sent a letter to the Mayor regarding better housing design. The Police and Crime Committee investigated online fraud in London, focusing on the work of the Met Cybercrime Unit, and published its report into violence against women and girls and hate crime on public transport. The GLA Oversight Committee asked questions about the GLA savings and efficiency proposals. The Housing Committee examined how many people sleeping rough in London are identified and supported. The committee also published a letter setting out the key considerations for the Mayor to strengthen renters' awareness and understanding of their rights. The Fire Committee held a meeting with the Deputy Mayor and the London Fire Commissioner about the LFB's budget for 26-27 and more. The Transport Committee responded to the consultation on local transport authorities and the licensing of taxis and private hire vehicles. The committee also wrote letters to the TfL Commissioner and the Secretary of State about assaults on transport workers in London. The Budget and Performance Committee considered 2026-27 Oxford Street Developments Corporation's budget. The audit panel examined internal audit reports, corporate risk register and the register of gifts and hospitality. The Environment Committee wrote to the government about price protections on the heat networks in London. And the Economy, Culture and Skills Committee published its report into the work of unpaid carers in the capital. And this week, many of us attended People's Question Time in Greenwich, where we answered the questions of Londoners that was asked of us. Along with the Police and Crime Committee held its normal question and answer session with the Deputy Mayor, and the Transport Committee questioned the TfL Commissioner, the Deputy Mayor for Transport, about the London transport system. And can I finally welcome in our audience today, we have the sixth form students from the Wren Academy, Enfield.
Where are you?
Where are you?
Hi.
Thank you very much. And along with other guests, welcome here today. And lastly, members will... Now, I need to say this, so please, members, listen carefully. And Mr. Mayor, you might want to listen carefully. Members will know the London local elections are coming up. Just to remind members, just to remind members, these meetings should never be used to try and affect support for particular parties or candidates. Instead, we are to put questions to the Mayor on issues which are important to Londoners' lives. Also, I know that the Mayor and members are very passionate about the issues on our agenda today. However, can I remind you all not to interrupt each other? It is very difficult for people watching, and in both at home and in the gallery. And it's also very difficult for me to chair and to follow the meeting if we're talking over each other and also, dare I say it, being discourteous. This is our last meeting of this particular session of the London Assembly. Let's try to have a sensible exchange if we can. It takes two to tango, I'm told. Welcome, Mr. Mayor.
Chairman, absolutely agree with you. I would never ask anybody to vote Conservative. It would be wrong, or Labour or Liberal, don't care. But if we're asking questions, can you do your best to make the Mayor answer the questions? Only there's a sort of an itis going round that the Prime Minister never answers questions. He's got it from him because he never answers. You.
Boris.
Thank you.
I'm sure we will all do our best in making sure that we ask short questions that enable the Mayor to give an effective answer that we all require. OK, can I move on to item 2, declarations of interest? Can I ask the Assembly to note the interest set out in item 2? Do Assembly members have any disclosable pecuniary interests which relate to the items on the agenda for today's meeting, or any other relevant interest, including any declarations in relation to gifts, hospitality, which are not reflected in the authority's register of gifts and hospitalities?
Assembly Member Cooper, Assembly Member Bell.
Thank you, Chair. There is a question in the order paper in my name which relates to community energy, and it's a non-pecuniary interest because I'm not paid, but I am a director of a community energy local group in my constituency in Wandsworth. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Any others?
The other day, I hosted delegates from the Ulaanbaatar City Council in Mongolia, and they left a gift to me, which I believe is over the declarable limit.
Okay, thank you. Any others? Okay, let's move on to item 3. Colleagues. Let's move on to item 3 on terms of the minutes. Can I ask the Assembly to confirm the minutes of the London Assembly Mayor's Question Time meeting held on the 26th of February 2026 to be signed by me as a correct record? Okay, item 4. Can I ask the Assembly to formally receive the Mayor's report covering the period from the 13th of February to the 12th of March 2026? The Mayor will now provide an oral update of up to 5 minutes in length on matters occurring since the publication of his report. Welcome, Mr. Mayor.
Good morning, everyone. At a time when good news is in short supply and global events are understandably casting long shadows over people's daily lives, I want to begin on a positive note with something all members can hopefully take pride and encouragement from. This week, following an intensely competitive process, I'm pleased to say London was awarded the highly prestigious Lee Kuan Yew World Prize on account of the transformative policies we've introduced to improve Londoners' lives. Named after Singapore's first Prime Minister, the prize recognises outstanding innovation, effective governance and strategic leadership in tackling complex urban challenges, and is undoubtedly another feather in London's already much decorated cap, not least because it's been referred to as the Nobel Prize for Cities. The judges were particularly impressed with several of our programmes and projects, including our ultra-low emission zone, which has helped to halve toxic air pollution in central London, the delivery of the Elizabeth line, which now transport 800,000 passengers a day, the work of the London Anchor Institutions Network, which has boosted small and medium-sized businesses and helped to get more of our city's employers signed up to pay the London living wage, and the introduction of universal free school meals in London's state primary schools, which is saving families £500 per child per year and ensuring our youngest students are not held back by hunger in the classroom. The judges also cited our plans to pedestrianise Oxford Street and turn it into a truly world-class public space as worthy of praise. Together, the judging panel concluded, and I quote, "These efforts have sustained London's position as a global magnet for investment, talent and visitors, with the city standing out as an exceptional cosmopolitan centre due to its rich cultural tapestry and international character." Now, I know the award of this prize will be greeted with disappointment by the unpatriotic few who seek to talk our capital city down at the expense of the many, and who attack our precious diversity at every opportunity. But I'm delighted to have further proof of what the majority of us know to be true, that London truly is the greatest city in the world. Chair, I've also been asked for a couple of oral updates, which I'll give now. The first one is on Golders Green from two members, Assemblymember Clark and Assemblymember Hall. This was a cowardly attack on the Jewish community, which is being treated as an anti-Semitic hate crime. I remain in close contact with the Met Police Service. Residents in the area have started seeing an increased police presence, and they'll continue to see this over the coming days and weeks. I was humbled to visit Hatsola Ambulance Service earlier this week and meet with community members. My team and I have been in regular contact with community leaders, local representatives and others from the community since Monday morning. Chair, yesterday 2 men were arrested on suspicion of arson with intent to endanger life. They've been released on bail while the investigation continues. I urge anyone with information to come forward, either by calling the Met on 101 or by contacting the independent charity Crime Stoppers anonymously on 0800 555 111. As well as our ongoing support to the Met, the Mayor's Office for Policing and Crime, MOPAC, has a strong and long-standing relationship with the Community Security Trust and Shomrin, supporting local communities across London to tackle anti-Semitism and protecting Jewish Londoners. We continue to support their vital work, which is more important than ever at this difficult time. Anti-Semitism and hate crime in all its forms have no place in our society, and I'll continue to stand in solidarity with London's communities against those who seek to divide us. And Chair, the second question is in relation to a stolen phone from Assembly Member Hall. This is entirely an operational matter for the Metropolitan Police Service and it would not be appropriate for me as the Mayor of London to comment or intervene on a live investigation like this.
Okay, can I bring in Assembly Member Hall?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, the front page of today's Telegraph suggests that, other than the phone call from Morgan McSweeney, the Met has no record of any contact from Number 10 in relation to the stolen device. As London's Police and Crime Commissioner, can you confirm that that is correct?
Chair, I can't. It's really important that we allow the police to be in charge of operational matters. It would be inappropriate for me as a politician with clear links to the government to get involved in the investigation at all, or for an impression to be given that I'm in any way influencing this independent investigation.
There's absolutely no question of you trying to influence it. That's not the point at all. It's in all the newspapers. Of course you haven't. But I'm absolutely astonished that Number 10 made no effort whatsoever to get hold of that important device. I mean, it must have had lots of phone numbers on. I mean, Miliband's number must have been on it, and we all know he's in charge. Those phone numbers would be very helpful for somebody to get hold of. It could be that it was a foreign agency trying to get hold of information. So did nobody contact you personally about it?
No, Chair, nobody has. And the Met have confirmed, and this is in the public domain, on the 20th of October they received a report from a man in his 40s alleging that his phone had been snatched. A review of the allegation, including a consideration of whether there was available CCTV, did not identify any realistic lines of inquiry, and the investigation was subsequently closed. The Met have subsequently discovered that the location of the offence was entered incorrectly at the time, and they are revisiting the decision to close the investigation. I understand, and the members referred to this, that a verbatim transcript of the 999 call has been published yesterday by the police for full transparency.
Yes, I should think it has, because the police don't want to get blamed for something. When a phone goes missing, they try and contact the person that reported the phone, and the phone wasn't answered. I just find it very, very strange, and I'm sure you do too, that Number 10 didn't want to get that phone back, or at least look into it, in case, you know, there was more afoot to somebody stealing it. Are you not surprised by that?
Chair, I retain very proudly my independence from a police investigation. It's really important that I stay outside of an operational matter.
You see, the thing is, the reason the press are so interested in it is that the week after Peter Mandelson was sacked, and with the possibility of messages being released which are on that specific phone, I cannot understand why Number 10 wouldn't want that to be found, quite frankly. I'm amazed nobody did contact you, because I would have thought it was a big deal to lose McSweeney's phone. And clearly the press think it's odd as well. Do you not think it's odd?
Chair, there's a police investigation. I'm not sure I can add any more to that.
Yeah, a friend phoned me last night and said if somebody wanted to lose their phone the week after they're intimately implicated in a huge scandal involving Peter Mandelson and his friendship with the convicted paedophile Jeffrey Epstein, the borough with the highest number of phone thefts in the phone theft capital of Europe would be the place to do it.
Well, this does give me a chance to commend the police for the fact they've managed to reduce the numbers of phones stolen last year by more than 10,000. We're investing in more support for the police, an additional £4.5 million in a command cell, but also in these Suron electric bikes and drones. We're determined to make more progress to reduce mobile phone thefts even more.
Yeah, I just do not understand why there wasn't more interest in getting that phone back. And you wonder why people look at this and think there's something not right here. It's got a wrong feel about it. I'm not surprised you're not answering any questions. The Prime Minister doesn't answer any questions. It seems to be a Labour thing. So on that point, I may as well stop there. Thank you, Chair.
Assembly Member Clark.
Thank you and good morning, and thank you for your update following the horrific attack in Golders Green. As you rightly state, it was not just cowardice, but it was also anti-Semitic and is being treated as such, and it has no place in London or, frankly, anywhere else in the world. Will you join me in thanking certainly Hatzalah, the CST, Schombrun, the London Fire Brigade, Barnet Council, and of course the local community for rallying around each other and rallying together in the aftermath of this horrific attack?
Well, Chair, the member is one of the local representatives we've been in regular contact with since the early hours of Monday morning. Can I commend her for the role she's played in bringing the community together, for supporting a community that is clearly traumatised. The last 2.5 years have been intolerable for many Londoners of Jewish faith and Jewish background. Hatzalah, for decades, have been doing amazing work in our great city. I'm really proud there are 5 separate Hatzalah organisations within London, the most of any city. These are Jewish volunteers who step up and help everyone in our great city, not just Jewish people who need additional support from health services. Some of the volunteers I've met this week, one of them has been a volunteer for 39 years. One of them has been a volunteer for 30 years, and he calculated the amount of hours he's given at night time. He's lost a year's worth of sleep serving Hatzalah and serving Londoners. Another volunteer, 20 years worth of voluntary experience. He must have begun when he was 8. He looked very young. He claims he was 19. These are amazing Londoners, and it's a source of pride to me, the work they do in the public service they do. And it's an example of the teachings of Judaism. And as we approach the festival of Passover and remember the story of the Exodus of Moses, I hope all of us would put out a hand of friendship to friends, colleagues and neighbours who are Jewish and are living with a heightened fear for the reasons she's alluded to, which is the big increase in the recent period of anti-Semitism.
For that. Thank you, Chair.
Assembly Member Boff.
Mr Mayor, would you, along with me, urge Londoners to consider donating to the Hatzalah appeal, which Londoners can safely go to by Googling Hatzalah Northwest and making a donation there?
Can I thank the member, as forever, talking in such inclusive language, and I'd encourage everyone, whether you're a Londoner or not, to donate to this fantastic organisation. And can I just make this point, which he didn't make, but I should make? There are some people trying to give the impression this is preferential treatment because they've got their own ambulance service, why haven't we? This is all from the community. They donate generously, they give time generously, and they help all of us, by the way. But for the grace of God, we may need the services of Hatzalah, and so I'd encourage everyone to please get involved in their fundraising efforts because they will need this support going forward, as they've done in the past, and I thank him for raising this issue.
Okay, let's now move to questions in the priority order paper. Each group is...
Apologies.
Sorry. Sorry, Assembly Member Roberts, you wish to come in on a
thank you.
update.
It's on the best city in the world statement which you just made, and you may have also seen that Richmond was voted or recognised as the best place to live in London, in the best city in the world. Would you agree logically, therefore, that Richmond is the best place in the world to live?
That is so tempting. Can I just say I spent a lot of time in Richmond because of the joys of Richmond. It's a gorgeous borough, and I understand filming has begun for the latest Ted Lasso as well. And there's apparently they've signed Mo Salah, which is really exciting for the next season. So I can't but echo his compliments of Richmond Council. It's a great council.
Thank you, Chair.
Okay. I think I can now.
Chair, I'm here for all Londoners.
I can now move to questions on the priority order paper. Each group is allocated an amount of time to ask their questions that is proportionate to the size of their group. The first question is titled "Empowering Londoners" from Assembly Member Garbett.
Can I thank the member for her question? When I was first elected, I promised to make London a fairer, greener, safer and more prosperous place for everyone. Londoners have put their faith in me again and again because I listened to them. Londoners want to get around the capital on 2 wheels without worry about their safety, So my administration has delivered a five-fold increase in London's protected cycle lanes. Londoners want better places for their kids to play, so we created and improved over 2,000 football pitches worth of green space. Londoners told me they were worried about the air they were breathing, so I rolled out Western Europe's largest fleet of electric buses and created the first and largest clean air zone in the world. In 2025, levels of nitrogen dioxide in our air fell below legal limits for the first time ever, almost 2 centuries before scientists told us they would have it if we hadn't acted. Londoners told me they wanted every child in the city to get a fair chance in life, so I introduced universal free school meals for pupils in our state primary schools, ensuring healthy, nutritious meals for children and saving money for families. Londoners told me they were worried about the price of getting around the capital too, so I introduced the hopper fare and froze bus fares 7 times, making it more affordable to get to work or see friends and family. 10 years on, I'm still listening to Londoners every day, children, students, parents, the brilliant people behind our businesses, charities and public services. I know that in our diverse city, Londoners have different ways of making their voices heard. That's why I'm determined to make my administration as accessible as it can be. Some examples include through social media, through consultations on key policies, through our community events, through my visits across London, through Talk London, our dedicated platform for listening to Londoners, through our correspondence team, and through events like People's Question Time. In the years ahead, I'm more motivated than ever to build the city Londoners tell me they want to see, from cleaning up our waterways to continue to bring down crime and delivering the affordable homes that Londoners deserve. I'm determined to keep building a safer, fairer, greener and more prosperous London for everyone.
Thank you. I want to talk about estate regeneration and what you're hearing from people who are living through estate regeneration that's funded by you. So I've been out and about across London over the last couple of years and visited a number of estates with people in a range of different situations. And I hosted an event here in February which brought together Londoners who are living through estate regeneration and still feel like it's incredibly unjust. So I just want to know what you're hearing from people living on estates that are experiencing estate regeneration that's unfolding around London.
Well, can I thank the member? She fed back to my Deputy Mayor some of the comments she'd received in her event she held here. So there are 2 separate issues. One is the process before estate regeneration occurs, and the second issue is the process during an estate being regenerated. And I think she's referring to the concerns around the second part of the discussion rather than the first, but I'm more than happy to respond to the first. To respond to the first part of this conversation, we're the only place in the country that requires before a regeneration can take place, if people want funding from us, for there to be a ballot of people to make sure there's an affirmative ballot before the regeneration can take place. And what we're also require in terms of planning, if you're going to demolish any affordable homes, which should be a last resort, they must be replaced with the same amount of affordable homes, if not more. So planning and funding is something we do uniquely in London, other parts of the country don't. The second part is a process of the estate regeneration. There have been concerns expressed from a number of residents about the disturbance caused, the issues that arise. We make sure our team speaks to relevant developers and councils to make sure residents are inconvenienced less during the process.
So that is, yeah, there's a number of things that you've brought in since you've been mayor that's meant to have improved the process, but people are still reporting that the ballot process isn't up to scratch. My predecessor, Sean Berry, wrote a report about that, and my report that I've written that's come to you today will further go into how those things haven't been implemented, because there's still about 140 estates facing demolition across the city, and people at the event said things like residents are lied to about right to return, not being given like for like, they're left in limbo for 10 years, the balloting is useless, there's no guarantee what you've been balloted on is what you're going to get. So these experiences are continuing despite some of the policies you've brought in, so I just wondered what you're planning to do to address those. Well,
the first thing I'll do is read her report, because it's really important that we take on board concerns on a cross-party basis, and I'm sure her intentions are sincere. Just to remind her and colleagues watching this, I mean, the Better Homes for Local People guidance is quite clear in relation to demolition as a last resort, the rights of residents, including the rights of residents to refuse. But I'm more than happy to receive her evidence about what's happening in practice, which of course, I've got to be cognizant of.
Yeah, and it'd be great if you could go and visit some of the residents and hear directly from them, because when I raised this last time, the Deputy Mayor did go, but I think he only spoke to the developer and not the residents. So it'd be really good if you could go and hear directly from some of these experiences.
Chair, I'm more than happy to follow that up.
Great. And yeah, the experiences from residents and the report kind of goes into the monitoring, backing up residents from the start, because it is that power imbalance. People feel like they don't you know, the ballot process was meant to address the power imbalance between the developer and the residents, but it hasn't quite done that.
I hear her. My concern is the one she referred to before, which is once permission has been granted and funding is left City Hall, are we keeping abreast of what's happening in reality? I'm seized of that issue she raised before. In relation to the process, you know, we did check to make sure before the ballot takes place, there's the right information passed out on the estate. There's, you know, quality of arms where there can be, people consulted, and some ballots have been refused. Residents said no in terms of some regeneration, and then the developer, the council have got to go away and reconsider, re-engage and so forth. So I'm more satisfied with the process before, but she's raised issues in relation to once we've given the green light, are we keeping abreast of what's happening? So, but I'll wait and see your report.
Great, thank you. Thanks. Back to you, Chair.
Assembly Member Turrell.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning, Mr. Mayor. Londoners who don't feel listened to are drivers. In your updated Vision Zero strategy, you flag SUVs particularly as being seen as unsafe. Given that all car models have to undergo rigorous safety checks before they're allowed to be sold in the UK, could I ask what aspects of this testing are you lobbying the government to change?
I thank the member for his question. So the first Vision Zero, which was published in 2018, has been transformative in reducing the numbers of people killed or seriously injured. The evidence suggests that there have been 250 fewer deaths on our roads because of Vision Zero 1, thousands of fewer people seriously injured. One of the things that I've asked TfL to go and look into is the evidence, which is in relation to the supersized SUVs. The evidence appears to be that if you're hit by a supersized SUV, because of the size of the bonnet and where it hits you, it'll hit your vital organs, or if you're a child, your head, compared to a smaller vehicle. And the evidence suggests that if you're a child and you're hit by a supersized SUV, you're 77% more likely to be killed. And if you're a child under 9, you're 3 times more likely to be killed, 210%. So I've asked TfL to go away and do some detailed analysis in relation to safety impact of supersized SUVs, but also issues in relation to damage to our roads, in relation to congestion, in relation to parking and so forth. So they're going to go away and do their detailed analysis, and I'll see what they say.
Thank you for that answer, Mr. Mayor. It's been reported that as part of this you're considering additional charges for SUV drivers, but SUV is a marketing term. Parents I've spoken to have said that it's almost impossible now to get a family car that couldn't be considered an SUV. So do you accept that any additional charges would be nothing more than a family cars tax?
I think it's really important to make a number of points in relation to his concerns. Firstly, TfL haven't done the analysis yet. Let them go away and do the analysis, and we'll come back and I'll come back to the Assembly once we know what TfL says. Secondly, he's right to distinguish, which I think he's doing, family-sized cars from what I was talking about, which is supersized SUVs. And I appreciate, particularly if you've got 3-4 kids, sometimes a family-sized car requires you to have what is termed an SUV. There is an additional challenge, by the way. There's no definition of what an SUV is. And so that's one of the reasons why TfL have got away in relation to talking to this issue. But I can't ignore the evidence about, if you're a child hit by a supersized SUV, you're much more likely to be killed. I can't ignore the evidence that kids under 9 hit by a supersized SUV because it hits their head rather than lower down with like a smaller vehicle, are more likely to be killed. That is the evidence, and that's why I've asked TfL to go away and do some detailed research and then come back to me with recommendations.
Assembly Member Polanski.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning. Aviation expansion is incompatible with net zero, and I think that's a sentiment you share, and it's also something the Committee on Climate Change has said in the past. I want to talk about Heathrow because in response to a question, you told me that you have expertise who are ready to safeguard the interests of London and Londoners in response to airport development. But if it's expanded, it feels a bit too late to respond. And actually, you're the Mayor of London. You've said already this morning you have clear links to the government. I just want to know what conversations are you having with the government, particularly in public, to say that aviation expansion is not welcome in London?
Can I thank him for his question and interest in this matter? Well, I've been clear in relation to my opposition to a third runway at Heathrow, given the significant impacts it will have on the environment and public health, not to mention the implications for already constrained transport networks and what it means for local communities. I'll continue to make the case against expansion to convince the government that a third runway would be a mistake. Despite the significant impacts of any expansion and my lobbying against it, I'm afraid the plans continue to move forward. In November last year, the Transport Secretary confirmed that Heathrow Airport Limited's proposal for expansion had been selected as a scheme to progress the project and will shape the review of the airport's national policy statement. The ANPS will provide the framework within which the key planning decision on Heathrow expansion will be made. The draft amended statement will be subject to consultation in July this year. My offices have been engaging with the government on Heathrow's plans for expansion throughout that time. TfL typically meets monthly with representatives from the DfT to input into the department's work on the update of the ANPS, and the GLA has discussed with the DfT the development of my New London plan. The objective of TfL and GLA engagement with the department is to ensure their review and update of the airport's national policy statement reflects the significant impacts of any expansion. It's also essential that it provides a framework for ensuring that if expansion occurs, it must be accommodated sustainably without undermining surface access networks or increasing air pollution and carbon emissions. GLA and TfL officers have also been engaging with boroughs representing local communities, including through the Heathrow Airport Transport Forum and Heathrow Planning Working Group. This will inform ongoing discussions with the government, ensuring that the voices of Londoners are fully represented in the review of the airport's national policy statement. At the same time, it will be key for Heathrow Airport Limited to continue working with TfL and the GLA as its plans develop, so we can fully understand the surface access implications of its proposals and likely interventions required. Supported by officers, I'll continue to take all opportunities to influence decision-making around the potential expansion of Heathrow to ensure the voices of Londoners are heard and the impacts are recognised, and this includes responding to any relevant consultations by the Civil Aviation Authority, the Department for Transport or Heathrow Airport Limited on expansion proposals.
That was a lot of words, and it sounds like you're waving the white flag on Heathrow expansion. You talked about your officers are making a case. What are you specifically doing, particularly in public, with this government that you have a clear link to say we don't want aviation expansion in London?
I literally said 3 minutes ago publicly, I'm against Heathrow.
You're saying that
expansion.
to me, but what conversations are you having with the Prime Minister?
I mean, this is a public meeting. I mean, I'm surprised the member who's always clipping them doesn't realise that. This is a public meeting, and I object to Heathrow being expanded. As I've made quite clear, I want a better Heathrow, not a bigger one. I've also, in the past, used all the tools in my toolkit to resist and expansion. I appreciate this is a bandwagon he wants to jump onto, but I've been driving this bandwagon for some time, and I'll carry on being in the driving seat, driving this bandwagon, in an electric, zero-emission bandwagon.
I mean, it's quite a stretch to say that the Green Party are jumping on a bandwagon in opposing aviation expansion.
Well, Chair, look, some people, challenge decisions, by bringing legal cases, which I've done, by lobbying publicly, which I've done. Others do it by hypnosis.
It's a pretty debasing of democracy there, Mr. Mayor. Let's talk about energy. Energy bills are going up, and to look for a fairer, greener London, what would you like to see the Chancellor do about people's energy bills?
Well, I think the key thing we need to do is have energy security. And that's one of the reasons why I support the government, despite opposition from the Conservatives, for us to be energy secure by investing in renewables. And I'm incredibly proud of the decisions made over the last 20 months, from increased investment in solar, increased investment in wind, and increased investment in nuclear. We've seen in recent years shockwaves caused in terms of energy prices because of our reliance on fossil fuels. Firstly, with the invasion by Putin in Ukraine, which caused a real shock in terms of energy prices. And secondly, most recently, with President Trump's decision to start a war in Iran, which has caused a big shock in energy prices. When I checked this morning, the price of a barrel of oil was $104, which has an impact in terms of not just energy consumption here, but on cost of living as well. So what we need to do is to encourage President Trump to end the conflict sooner rather than later. An amicable resolution will lead to energy prices stabilising sooner rather than later. And secondly, move full speed ahead in terms of being energy secure by investing in renewables. And I would hope the Green Party would support the Labour government in doing that.
Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Just to help me facilitate the meeting, I'm going to bring in two Assembly members who are going to talk about zero vision, whatever it's called, following on from that, try and keep it together. So we've got Assembly Member Kripa Shirani, followed by Caroline Russell, who want to bring their interventions on zero vision.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, for listening to Londoners on Vision Zero, especially those who are supporting bereaved families and bereaved families themselves and those around them. Now, one of the ways that you've been tackling Vision Zero is through the local implementation plan process and supporting boroughs to implement schemes in their local areas. Can you give us an update on how the local implementation plan, or LIP, process is working and how you're working with boroughs to improve lives across London?
Well, can I thank him for his interest in this matter? And he's been speaking to my team about concerns he's got locally in Harrow and Brent, I know. So the bad news is, because of the pandemic and decisions made during the pandemic by the government, they gave us support, but it meant we had to reduce the amount of money going to councils through the local implementation plans. The great news is we managed to increase year on year now the amount of money going into boroughs. For the coming year, there will be £95 million in funding to London's boroughs, and the funding will support borough-led projects. They've got to be borough-led, from safety around local road networks, helping to deliver new cycle routes, pedestrian crossings, school streets, and so forth. TfL's also published progress between 2022 and 2025 of some of the work that LIPs have funded, which is really important, so Londoners can see the difference their councils are making, and a key part of that is having healthy streets. And so I'd encourage him to get his two boroughs, one of them is very good, Brent, and the other one that's less good, Harrow, to work with TfL to get improvements in their communities.
Thank you. And I'm particularly concerned about a dangerous junction in North Harrow, where Harrow Council and TfL are taking an extraordinary amount of time to make improvements. And in the meantime, accidents just continue to happen at this junction, at the Pinner Road and Station Road junction. And the money appears to be there actually to implement the changes. The design has been worked up. There's a scheme ready. Can you commit to personally looking into this and intervening to make sure that we realise those improvements that residents desperately need?
Chair, I was given advance notice by my team that Senator Harani has been lobbying for this for some time now, and so assiduously. And so I'll make sure my Deputy Mayor contacts him today to give him an update in relation to this. Can I thank him for his lobbying in terms of trying to accelerate making this junction safer, and I'll make sure my team speak to him today.
And people just want safe junctions, especially pedestrians when they're trying to cross the road. If you look at the amount of junctions we still have in outer London without push-button crossers. What would you say to politicians that describe Vision Zero as woke and put derogatory terms on it, because all people want is to take away the culture wars around safety?
No, I think this is an issue that I'd hope there'd be a cross-party agreement. I mean, Caroline Russell has been assiduous ever since she's been on the Assembly, working with me, challenging TfL, challenging me to go further. And so I'm disappointed that some of the Assembly are using this as a proxy for some sort of culture war, giving the impression that safer roads are anti-car, giving the impression because we're anti-death on our roads, we're anti-car. The response from the evidence in relation to supersized SUVs over the last few days is just an example of the lengths these guys will go to try and anger people on misinformation. And I think he's right to remind us all of the difference it makes to his constituents about being able to walk safely, cross the road safely, and if, God forbid, they're hit by a car, because it's going at 20 miles per hour rather than 30 miles per hour, 5 times less likely to be killed or seriously injured. And when you see results like 250 fewer deaths over the last few years, when you see the evidence of a 75% reduction in children being killed, we should be celebrating that on a cross-party basis rather than being on Conservative leaflets.
Thank you.
Continuing the theme of Vision Zero, Assembly Member Russell.
Thank you, and thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to just start actually by thanking you, not only on behalf of myself, but also on behalf of all the people that I worked with last year when I was putting together my report about changing the narrative on accepting the road death, the acceptance of road death in London, because so many people are really pleased to see the way that your Vision Zero Action Plan 2 challenges that culture where speeding, distraction and risky driving are treated as acceptable. You've recognised that mistakes happen and that the system needs to change. You've really talked about that collaboration for everyone to be taking part in it. So that's the boroughs, it's the police, it's TfL, it's the ambulance service, it's everyone in London working on Vision Zero. And most importantly, you have centred the needs of the lived experience of bereaved families and the injured survivors of road traffic collisions. So I just wanted to start off actually by just thanking you and thanking your teams at TfL for having done such an awesome job on it.
Can I just respond to that, which is this is personal to both of us because through the member, I've met victims and bereaved families, and it changes you. It changes you, and I think she should get recognition from the Assembly about the difference she's made, not just in terms of making our roads safer. She was quite powerful in educating me about what happens after an accident. And the support we will now give in perpetuity to the victims of an RTA is down to her lobbying. And she will know the pilot we introduced, which I said I'd see the evidence. And the pilot we introduced, thanks to her lobbying, was so powerful in terms of the difference it made to the victims and survivors. It's now going to go in perpetuity. We've got funding in place. And yes, we want to reduce the numbers of road traffic accidents. Yes, we want to reduce the number of people killed or seriously injured. But she was right to remind me and TfL, even with the best one in the world, there may still be some, and the aftercare is very important. So can I just compliment the member back for her assiduous campaign on this, and we'll carry on listening. She does support us, but she does challenge us as well.
I'm just about to do that, Mr. Mayor. I'm just about to do that because there's loads of stuff in your action plan, that new things that are really great ideas, like hospital zones, evening streets, and the fact that you're going to pilot the side road zebras. That is excellent. There's one thing that, when I was reading it through, that really jarred for me, and that was the disconnect between TfL and the Met in responding to unsafe and illegal e-bikes. So there's a really welcome, positive recognition of the need for workers' rights and employer accountability within the gig economy. But there's a section where the MPS, I think it's number 23, commitment 23, the MPS commits to using, and I quote, robust enforcement such as roadside stops, seizures, live facial recognition and increased police patrols to tackle illegal e-bikes. Now, I get these illegal e-bikes, they're motorbikes, they're illegal, they've got a throttle, they're unlicensed, and absolutely they need regulation. But I'm worried that this approach by the Met, without the other piece having been put in place, is going to expose some of the most exploited workers in our city to policing tactics that we know have a very high risk of disproportionality in the way that they're applied.
I understand what she's saying. She makes a very good point. Can I just distinguish two things? One is there is no regulation at the moment in relation to e-bikes, and that would be transformative in relation to the lawful e-bike user. There is a separate issue about some of these illegal e-bikes have been used for criminality. Not just road traffic criminality, but we know a lot of the mobile phone thefts in the West End are people using illegal e-bikes, and so I think this is a new area. This is a developing area for the police. They, as she knows, purchased these Surron e-bikes to try and counter the phone theft issue on illegal e-bikes. But let me take away the point she makes in relation to unintended consequences with the best of intention and see what we can do about that.
That's great. There's a really good report from Possible called Hot Wheels, which has a lot of information, and it's just the fact that gig economy workers, they need access to safe bikes before they get a police crackdown. But I'm going to move us on because we've previously discussed the gap in support for Londoners bereaved or seriously injured in a road traffic collision following the closure of Road Peace. Now, I know you fund Break to provide that caseworker service, but this doesn't enable people who are coping in the aftermath of a traumatic crash to provide each other with mutual support. And that's the thing that the bereaved families and the seriously injured survivors are really, really missing. Now, Abby Toghill, who you met at People's Question Time just over a year ago, whose fiancé Mithan was killed on a pedestrian crossing, is in the process of setting up an online community forum for road crash victims to try and fill this gap in peer-to-peer support. This is something that the Assembly agreed a cross-party motion on back in January about wanting to find a way to fill that support. Now, Abby's proposal just might be able to fill that gap. So I wondered if you would be prepared to meet with me and Abby to discuss this, this proposal that she has.
Well, Chair, I know that TfL have stakeholder forums. I'd be more than happy for the team at TfL, including the Deputy Mayor, to meet with Caroline and Abby to discuss how the group Abby's setting up can be part of this invaluable stakeholder group. I mean, Breaker on there, Sarah Hopeline and many other stuff. So let's take that away. I'm more than happy to work with her.
Thank you very much indeed.
Assembly Member Garrett.
Morning. So one group of Londoners that we have all been listening to this week is bus drivers and their unfair and unhealthy place of work. I'm sure you've seen the ITV reports that 17% of London bus drivers have fallen asleep at the wheel. 1 in 4 does not have adequate toilet facilities on their rest points, so they're using bottles and jars on the bus. Drivers are afraid to raise these concerns because of the culture that they perceive within the industry. So like all of us, I imagine you're going to say that you are appalled. The question is whether anything will change. So what are you going to do about all of these points and others that have been brought to your attention?
Well, Chair, can I thank him and Senator Baker, both of whom have been really thorough in relation to raising this issue and bringing it to our attention. So yesterday, I spoke to the Deputy Mayor for Transport as a consequence of the snippet I'd seen in terms of the Transport Committee, I think it was, that met yesterday. So the two things that were new to me were the ITV report that I saw recently, which I found appalling in terms of what drivers are going through. I followed that up with the Commissioner. And secondly, he'll be pleased to hopefully he'll be pleased to have seen the response from the Commissioner yesterday in relation to agreeing this is unacceptable. There's a number of things we've got to do. One is, I don't think we can rely upon the operator to, by themselves, turn this around, because clearly things aren't getting better as they should. So the Commissioner made it quite clear, both in terms of the context we have with the operator, but also the trade unions and bus drivers. They must have direct access to let us know what's happening in reality. I'll give them a recent example. I met a bus driver at a bus garage, and I was talking to him about how great he must find the facilities are we've introduced. And he told me, actually, no, the reality is very different to what I'd been told about the facilities. And so we followed that up. So it can't be incumbent upon just the bus drivers to let us know. We've got to go out there and check for ourselves whether what the operators have told us is happening is happening. And my promise to him, more importantly to bus drivers, is TfL will practically go out and see for themselves if the stuff that we've been told has happened, and also proactively see what more needs to be done to improve the welfare of our bus drivers.
I mean, I've been raising this for 5 years, so I'm pleased that it's now come to your attention. I don't know why it didn't previously. One of the problems, to be blunt, is that bus drivers just think that they've also been banging on about this for years, many years, longer than I have, and they just think that nothing will change. So what is tangibly happening that it will actually be different this time?
Well, he's only been raising it for a short time, but I've been raising it for 10 years, and I've been bringing about change for 10 years, which is why I'm the first mayor to introduce
So I was being nice. So nothing has happened. All of these issues, you've been mayor for nearly a decade, nothing's changed. Stop blowing your own trumpet. You're now pretending that this is the first...
I thought we were going to have a best question time.
No, you're now pretending that this is the first time...
questions to be asked and me to answer them.
You're now pretending this is the first time this has been brought to your attention.
This bad manners is not good for anybody.
There's a long...
If I could answer the question, that would really help.
He's talking over me because he doesn't want to hear. What will be different this time? What will be different this time?
Since becoming mayor, I'm the mayor that's introduced 75 toilet facilities on 75 routes, 79 welfare facilities. We brought out big changes in relation to how operators behave. Unlike him, I respect and value trade unions who've been integral to bus drivers, let us know what the challenges are. Despite cuts from the government, we've introduced and invested £24.5 million in bus drivers' welfare, with a further £6 million investment in the upcoming year. So we can play party politics with this, or we can recognise the progress made, but accept, as I've said, there's more that needs to be done.
So 12 months from now, how will it be different? What will have changed?
Well, we hope to build on the progress made over the last 10 years. We hope over the course of the next year to have regular reviews of bus schedules to ensure that we're checking the welfare of the bus drivers, to check to make sure that issues around fatigue have been addressed. A further piece of work has been undertaken in relation to auditing of drivers' hours to make sure issues around compliance with national regulations are taking place. Each bus operator now for the first time has a fatigue risk management plan that goes beyond legal minimums. And in 12 years' time, we'll have the results, I hope, of the fatigue detection technology that we're embarking on, which looks at the impact of rostering, for example, on driver alertness. We'll also have, in 12 months' time, the impact of the training programs in relation to fatigue management, in relation to well-being, and in relation to hazard awareness as well. We'll also know in 12 months' time how the £500,000 we've invested in innovation on fatigue, health and well-being has been fulfilled. And we'll also have in 12 months' time the results from Loughborough University on enhanced well-being checks. I also hope in 12 months' time we'll see changes brought about by the bus safety improvement, including redesigning of bus cabins, improving ergonomics, comfort and the in-cabin environment.
That's the Loughborough University study from 2019 you're referring to. Just quickly, another issue that Londoners will bring up, I'm sure you're aware, I'll obviously be checking in 12 months to see whether any of that has happened. Another issue Londoners will tell you about is potholes. Just quickly, are you aware electric buses being heavier, they have higher axle weight, which is a main factor in road wear? Has anyone brought to your attention the risk of increased potholes and road wear from electric buses?
It's just worth clarifying because the member misspoke. He meant the Loughborough University report commissioned in 2025. He said 2019. That's fine. I'm well aware of heavy vehicles causing damage to our roads. One of the reasons why TfL is doing the detailed analysis in relation to the impacts of supersized SUVs is not
My
just
question was
danger.
about buses, not supersized SUVs or any other kind of SUVs. Electric buses, are you aware they're heavier and therefore causing more road wear or not?
One of the reasons why TfL is doing the detailed analysis into supersized SUVs is not just in relation to road danger, but also in relation to the impact heavier vehicles have on issues around damages to our roads. And that impact not just supersized SUVs, but also electric buses, HGVs and other heavier vehicles.
I'm not sure that was really an answer to my question. I will leave it there, Chair.
Assembly Member Baker.
Thanks, Chair, and much appreciated for bringing me in. I want to also follow up on you listening to bus drivers on the matter of fatigue, because I think it's really important to be accurate on what's actually going on. I don't think TfL are doing enough on this matter, but we need to be very, very clear about what they are and aren't doing. The Transport Committee arranged a briefing a few weeks ago specifically on bus driver welfare. It was unfortunate that a number of parties weren't represented at that briefing, and it may be why some people aren't aware of some of the things that are being done. But specifically on fatigue, in a number of industries, there are much better ways of rostering that have been developed over many, many years, many decades, that TfL are not adequately comparing to the bus industry to see what could be done better. When questioned, they said that they wanted an external company or an external provider to be doing that work and weren't taking that responsibility directly for them. Considering how much of the bus operations are actually carried out in London, that feels like a failure on their part. And I certainly believe and told them that they should be stepping up. Is that something that you could specifically pick up with TfL in terms of not just waiting for other organisations to do the research, but proactively making it done and listening to it?
Chair, can I say that the point the member makes is so important, not simply because of her concern about bus drivers, but because of her concern about passengers and other road users as well. So can I reassure her that not only will I take this away and check with the Commissioner what's been undertaken, but I don't think we should be subcontracting this in terms of the issue she raises, which is the issue of safety and the consequences of fatigue. And so, Chair, can I take this away, get back to her as somebody who cares about this on actual, not just the producer interest, the driver, but she's right to remind me about the consequences of not getting this right, but also expecting somebody else to reassure us in the way she says. So I'll get back to you as soon as I can.
Thank you. That would be much appreciated. And just on that matter, obviously we have a system where bus operators are responsible for that employee health and safety. That's right. That's how it's set down in law. But obviously we do also expect TfL to make sure the services are safe. With your intention to explore further a publicly owned bus company, what opportunities might there be to be able to model best practice in safety on buses?
So firstly, I think the first part of a question, I mean, this is a continuing challenge TfL have with franchisees and contracts, whether it's the Elizabeth line in a different context, the trams or buses, because we're not the people who provide the service. We contract others to provide the service. So the checks and balances are really important. The huge advantage of having a TfL operated and run bus company in sourcing provides a benchmark. We want to be an exemplar, but also it means we can check whether when a bus operator says this is not possible, whether it is possible or not. We can also, by the way, ensure that, I say this in a neutral way, inverted commas, our people are treated the best they can be in terms of fatigue and the rest, and so others need to rise to that level. And we're making progress, and I hope later on this year there'll be some good news in relation to this issue.
I think that would be really positive. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Back to you, Chair.
So, Assembly Member Georgiou.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And good morning, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, many of the issues that matter most to the residents of the London Borough of Enfield are precisely the areas which you have failed to deliver on and listen to. Just to give some examples, you've imposed more LTNs, more tower blocks, the destruction of Cockfosters and Arnos Grove car park stations, destruction of Cruise Hill and the Greenbelt, a borough-wide 20-mile-per-hour zone, higher council tax, higher crime, and the threat of building on Trent Country Park. Why aren't you listening to the people of Enfield?
Well, Chair, I think evidence of us listening to the people of Enfield is the fact that we've invested in, for example, Enfield schools. Evidence of us, free school meals. Evidence of us listening to the people of Enfield is us investing in public transport in terms of not just the buses and the Superloop, but also in terms of improvements in public transport. Evidence we're listening to the people in Enfield is us invested in making cycling safer to encourage more people to cycle. Evidence we're listening to people in Enfield is our great working relationship with the council, which has led to record numbers of council homes being built. Evidence of people in Enfield liking the way I've been the mayor for the last 10 years is them voting in record numbers for me in 2016, 2021 and 2024.
To correct the record, the people of Enfield didn't vote for you in 2016, they didn't vote for you in 2021, and they voted to be safer with Susan in 2024, Mr. Mayor.
How's that working out for them?
We'll leave that to one side. So, Mr. Mayor, for 6 years, you said that you would protect Cruise Hill and the Greenbelt. You've now had a complete 180 conversion since the crooks that are now in this government took over. So were you lying then, or are you lying now?
There's a lot there to unpack, Chair.
Not a lot. Were you lying then, or are you lying now?
Let me try, Chair. So I'm incredibly proud that in London we've got not one, but 2 new towns announced by this government they'll be supporting. And one of the new towns is in Cruise Hill. And if you spend some time talking to those waiting to be housed, those in the council waiting list, those living in overcrowded accommodation, those who are underemployed or out of work, they would tell him how much they're looking forward to thousands of new homes, thousands of new jobs, investment in public transport as a consequence of Cruise Hill being one of the news town. And he's an example of one of those people who aren't happy at us being the greatest city in the world and Enfield getting the investment they're going to get. But I appreciate that's party politics.
No, what I'm not happy with is you ganging up with reform to build tower blocks on the Greenbelt Labour to build tower blocks on the Greenbelt, the Greens that don't care about the environment anymore, and I don't even know what the Lib Dems are up to these days. My question to you, Mr. Mayor, is: you spent 6 years opposing Enfield Labour Council's local plan that wanted to build tower blocks on Cruise Hill and on the Greenbelt. So I ask you once again, mate, were you lying then or are you lying now? Which one? Pick one. Come on.
I mean, Chair, I've been doing this a long time, and his performative loudness and anger is quite a joy to watch and behold.
Well, only one of us cares about Enfield, so I am genuinely angry compared to you. So, were you lying then or are you lying now?
It's like a Robert De Niro and Taxi Driver, isn't it?
Were you lying then? Were you lying then or were you lying now?
So I'm somebody who's...
I mean, I've had worse comparisons than Robert De Niro, but carry on. Were you lying then or are you lying now?
A poor man's version of Robert De Niro, I hasten to add.
And you're a pound shop Ken Livingstone, so I wouldn't laugh too much, mate. So were you lying then or are you lying now?
I mean, I'm incredibly proud of the progress we've made in terms of getting 2 new towns in.
Were you
London.
lying then or were you lying now? Answer the question. You spent 6 years saying, I oppose Enfield Labour Council destroying Cruise Hill. I oppose Enfield Labour Council destroying the Greenbelt. Your own deputy mayor signed similar letters. But lo and behold, the moment we get a Labour government, you sell out on the environment and you sell out on protecting 1,000 jobs at Cruise Hill.
I'm really proud that this government is working with this mayor and the fantastic council in Enfield to create tens of thousands of new homes, tens of thousands of new jobs. And I'm looking forward to making progress in terms of the Great Northern Lines and bringing Cruise Hill under TfL control. And when those things happen, new homes, new jobs, better public transport, we'll be celebrating that, as indeed residents of Enfield will. And I was disappointed, rather than a bit of class, we got crass from this guy from Enfield.
Mr. Mayor, as usual, you took the coward's way out of not answering the question, and the people of Enfield will speak in due course over successive periods and election cycles. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
What can I say? Look, let's bring in...
Who's got the courage to follow that?
Can we... Sorry, can we bring in Assembly Member McCartney?
Thank you. And as the representative of Enfield, can I say thank you for all that you have done, because you have made Enfield people's lives healthier and fairer. You've brought in cleaner air. You have built more council homes together with that fantastic Labour Council, and you have fed our hungry children. So thank you for that. But I want to turn really to some further funding you've given to Enfield and to other spaces around London, and that's in your Loved and Wanted Fund. You've recently announced 30 community spaces that are being funded by yourself and the National Lottery to bring people together and help the loneliness epidemic we have. And in Enfield, you've given funding to HES, and in Havering to the Bridge Renewal Trust. Can I just ask you, how will those networks actually bring people together and combat loneliness?
Well, Chair, I'd have thought, bearing in mind we began the meeting talking about anti-Semitic arson attacks on a minority community, rather than moaning and groaning when the member talks about making sure all Londoners are loved and wanted, they'd be cheering and clapping by what the member has said. And this is an example of the hypocrisy when it comes to giving the impression that some members care about minority communities and the reality on the ground. So I'm really proud that working with the National Lottery, we're invested in all of our communities. So we are providing support financially and in other kinds to community centres and other places across our city where people can get the support to feel loved and wanted. Some of whom, as you said, could be feeling lonely and isolated. Some could be from minority communities. It could be the Jewish community. It could be other minority communities. Some will be given funding to provide facilities. It could be sports facilities. It could be children's activities. It could be bringing people together who are disparate and don't often meet to have a conversation. It could be a difficult conversation that is properly curated so they can do so. We know, in 2026, people are living atomised lives. People are really busy. The social hubs that used to exist, the post office, the pub, the community centre, may have disappeared or not be a place for everyone to come. So we're supporting them do that. And on the one hand, they criticise the lack of integration and too many silos. On the other hand, they groan and moan when we're trying to bring people together to integrate them. I'm incredibly proud of this funding, which shows that, we walk the walk when these guys just talk the talk at appropriate times.
Yes, that's right. And obviously, part of building a healthier and fairer city is making sure that people feel as if they belong, that this city is theirs, that being a Londoner actually means getting along and respecting each other. And Trafalgar Square is one of our city's most important iconic public spaces, where we come together to celebrate a range of events, from St George's Day, St Patrick's Day, as we've had recently, to Eid and Hanukkah. And next Friday, of course, we're celebrating Easter with the Passion of Jesus taking place. But we've recently had the Shadow Justice Secretary seeking to divide Londoners with his recent comments about the iftar event that you attended. Can I just ask, what's your comments with regard to that?
Well, I'm incredibly proud that over my 10 years as mayor, I've supported all our communities take advantage of what I think is the most famous square in the centre of the greatest city in the world. It's a source of pride to me that I've celebrated Hanukkah with Jewish Londoners. It's a source of pride to me I've celebrated Diwali with our Hindu, Sikh and Jain Londoners and others. It's a source of pride to me I've celebrated Vaisakhi with Sikh Londoners and others, celebrated Eid with Muslim Londoners and others, sung carols at Christmas time, been there when the Christmas tree is lit up, been there on Good Friday when she mentioned the Passion of Christ, and other non-religious events, whether it's Pride, whether it's St Patrick's Day, whether it's St George's Day, whether it's Black on the Square. And I made this point politely and gently to those who want to divide our communities. The Muslims I speak to don't want to dominate, they want to do good. They don't want to take over, they want to give back. And where were these Conservatives and Reform politicians when it came to events for Christians, Hindus, Jews, Sikhs, those of no particular religion? What's so special about Muslims that they've got to be targeted this way? It's the opposite of British values. It's the opposite of bringing people together. One of the reasons, I suspect, why we've seen a massive increase in anti-Muslim hatred is the normalisation of these sort of attitudes and this sort of behaviour. And I would hope decent Conservatives, decent Reform activists would dissociate themselves completely with the views of Kemi Badenoch and Nigel Farage. And if they don't, that speaks volumes about them and also, I'm afraid, how low they've sunk in terms of trying to win in votes. I think the way to win votes is hope, not fear. The way to make our city successful is unity, not division. And I've seen the consequences of fear and division, but also seeing the joys of hope and unity. And hope Londoners will choose the latter rather than the former.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. And I was very pleased, actually, to attend a community iftar hosted by Enfield Council and the Rumi Mosque from Edmonton. And that was truly an interfaith celebration, not only of the Muslim faith, but also of all our faiths in our community. And it's that sort of joy and coming together and belonging that really makes our city what it is. Thank you.
Assembly Member Best.
Thank you. Good morning. Listening to Londoners, it's clear they want fair access to speak to the police face to face. You've always maintained that on police front counters, that's an operational decision. On the 11th of September 2025, you said ultimately any changes to the number of police front counters or their opening times is ultimately an operational decision for the MPS. Do you stand by that?
I think when there's limited funding available for the MPS and the Commissioner's giving me advice about how he's going to use the finite resources, I've got to take seriously what he's saying. So, if, for example, he's saying that by reducing the hours or closing down front counters, it means more officer shifts, it means more police officers in the neighbourhoods.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I've misunderstood the question, and that's unfortunate. I'll help you out. I'm asking, do you stand by the fact it's an operational decision? It's a yes or no answer.
No, it isn't a yes or no answer.
So is it an operational decision, yes or no? You said it is a yes or no answer. You said on the 11th of September 2025, any changes to the number of police front counters and their opening times is an operational decision for the MPS to take. Yes or no, were you right or were you wrong?
So the issues of how the police spend their resources when they're limited is a matter for the police to take, but I take seriously the advice I received from the Commissioner as the operational expert in terms of police in London. And when I'm given options in terms of how finite money is spent, in terms of bricks or mortar, or in terms of police officers in the community, I'll take on board very seriously what the Commissioner says.
So it's an operational decision, yes or no? You said it was an operational decision.
The issue of how the police use finite resources in difficult times...
OK. Shall we phrase it in the way that you were struggling with before? We'll try again. Were you lying then or are you lying now today?
Well, Chair, I've answered the question
no,
as
you
best
haven't.
as I can, which is that issues in relation to the expenditure of money that go to policing are matters for which I need to take the advice and be cognizant of the advice of the Met Police Commissioner.
So you do take... So it was a political decision, not an operational one. It was a political decision.
The decision to free up police officer hours, officer shifts, and to free up police officers was based upon the advice given by the Commissioner, based upon his expertise.
So why would you say in September it was an operational decision if it was your decision?
The decision in relation to how police resources are used are decisions for the Commissioner, who gives his advice and works with MOPAC in relation to those decisions. MOPAC and myself listen to the advice from the Commissioner when it comes to operational matters. The issue of resources, police officer resources in a neighbourhood team, officer shifts being used out in the community, based on the advice from the Commissioner to myself and the Deputy Mayor.
You make absolutely no sense when you talk. You're talking yourself in circles. It's an operational decision or it's not. You're disagreeing with something you said only a few months ago. But the thing that I'm confused about is whether this was a political decision or not. Because I was aware from the words from your mouth that this was an operational decision, which was why I was really confused when one of your Labour Assembly members put up a video encouraging you to think of him as daddy, and not in the paternal sense, by the way. I don't know if you're familiar with that. And saying that he was the reason that his police station stayed open.
So if I could rehearse how we got this position. So the Commissioner presented...
So were Assembly members responsible for keeping their stations open or not? Yes or no?
Let me explain this. So the Commissioner brought out a list of tough choices in relation to how we're going to balance the budget, and those tough choices are based on operational matters. The police service consulted and engaged with a number of representatives across London, including members of the London Assembly, and some excellent members of the Assembly made powerful representations.
So are you saying that Assembly member Mwema, who isn't here to defend herself, is a rubbish member of the Assembly? How dare you? That's incredibly rude to her. How dare you say that? We'll leave that there. I don't want to hear him abuse your Labour Assembly members anymore. Thank you.
Chair, I can imagine...
No, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, go.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor. Right, go on.
I don't think you should say anything else rude about Assembly member Mwema. She's not here to defend herself. Let's go.
Mr. Mayor, very quickly.
I can imagine when the hard-working researcher was writing this line of questioning from the member how clever she thought it was. Let me explain why it's not so clever. The list of tough choices presented by the Commissioner was just that.
Chair, I wrote that. Sorry, Mayor. I think you're being rude now. Not only to Labour Assembly members, you're being rude to GLA staff. Nobody wrote this. I wrote this. So you're being rude to me and saying that I'm not clever. He's being rude to every single person.
To the Mayor.
He's being rude about GLA staff. He's being rude about Assembly members. He can be rude about Assembly members. He's being rude about staff. There's no briefing here, so you're being rude about me. So if you want to talk about intelligent, I can answer a yes or no question. Can you?
Sorry. Can you ask your member just to pause for a minute?
Did you tell me to shut up then?
Can you tell the member to pause?
Yeah, you did.
Can you put some group discipline on this, please?
No, we're moving on. You're the one that's allowing it to happen.
Chair, the problem we have is that this mayor does not answer.
The problem
so
I
I've
have,
got very frustrated members. No, I understand your position. I mean, I do understand your position. It's difficult because you can't get your mayor to answer any questions any more than I can persuade my members not to be very frustrated every single time we ask questions. We ask a yes or no question, we get something completely different. It's very frustrating. Hopefully we'll come back in the new term, but in the meantime, if the mayor's being rude about other members, it's very difficult.
The mayor has never been as rude to me as he is consistently to women, including Assemblymember Best. It's appalling, and I'm calling it out. We repeatedly called out. We made a whole video calling it out, cross-party. I think Assemblymember Best is entirely within her rights to challenge the mayor's rude, sexist behaviour.
Correct. Because, look, calm down, everybody. And so, look, I just want to say this. I don't mind, right, about you taking 10 chunks out of each other. But when I intervene and just ask for a pause, I expect you to stop. I don't expect you to talk over me, whoever you are, right? It doesn't really bother me here. I want to hear the last part of the response where the member has said you're calling out an Assembly member for what they said. Was they right or wrong? The Mayor has got an answer to it. We should finish that. We should go back on the clock. Mayor, I want you to do it as quickly as you can, make your point, and then we can move on. Right? It's that. We ask questions, and sometimes we don't get the answers. And I understand the frustrations that that members face, and particularly at this particular time. But unless there is an opportunity for the Mayor to answer, he will always do it in his own way. We've had it from previous mayors. They will do it in their way. Also, I ask, Mayor, can you do it very quickly? There was a charge about that you have undermined a London Assembly member by their statements that they've made. Can you address that point?
Well, Chair, I can understand why the Conservatives are confused, frustrated and angry. I would be too if I was hypocritical about the issue of police resources. They were the party that cut the police budget by £1.2 billion, a third of core funding. So I can understand their embarrassment, their rudeness, their frustration and their anger.
OK, right, now, let's move on. Assembly Member Cooper.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Mr Mayor. Assemblymember Moema, as you know, is not with us this morning because she's at home with her new baby, Isabel. However, she has been spending a lot of time, as you know, listening to Londoners. And one of the fairness issues that's come to her attention, and mine, and I know yours, has been the issue of leasehold. A third of Londoners are leaseholders. And being a leaseholder is essentially a feudal relationship with the freeholder. And the government has introduced very welcome legislation, both last March and more recently. And we are hopeful, certainly for new people coming into housing, that leasehold is going to be banned. However, we do have this very large number of people who are still leaseholders. What can you do to lobby to essentially move that on towards common hold for existing leaseholders? Thank you.
Yeah, can I thank her for her question? I've long called, as she has, for the replacement of the feudal leasehold system with common hold. And I'm delighted this government, unlike the previous ones, taken action to introduce a new common hold system and making this the default, as she alluded to, for new flats. The government is also making significant progress towards extending and improving protections and rights for existing leaseholders. And this is something that the previous government promised but completely failed to deliver on. Reforms of huge importance to Londoners because there are 1.4 million, 38% of residential properties in London that are leasehold. She'll be aware that sales of new leasehold homes have been banned, but unfortunately leasehold flats were omitted. And she'll also be aware that most of the new builds in London are flats, 95% are flats. This is a big issue for us. Many of London's leaseholders, and both she and Assemblymember Moema have pointed this out, report experiencing stress and worry with their homes, including eye-watering high service charges, poor standards of management and workmanship, a lack of transparency in relation to charges, and lack of access to advice, information and routes of redress. In City Hall, we've taken steps to support leaseholders, including requiring 990-year leases for shared ownership homes, developing a guide and service charges charter. But there's a big issue in relation to further protections that are required, and so I'll continue to use the platforms that I've got to ensure Londoners know their rights, so when the time comes they can benefit from and use them effectively.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. One of the issues that has arisen is that some people are arguing that you could overnight move from being a leaseholder to the common hold situation. But I think this would be dangerous because this might potentially leave people at risk of freeholders or managing agents coming in, external directors on estates, because we have a number of large estates these days. And so that instead of having resident-led common hold situations, we might find others coming in. Would you agree with that, or do you think we could just convert all the leaseholds overnight to common hold?
Well, I mean, it's just worth reminding ourselves, this system has been going on for literally more than 1,000 years, this feudal system that I referred to. The changes the government's announced is the biggest change in this area for arguably 1,000 years. I think it's unrealistic to expect it to happen overnight, not just because of the way the funding works, the investors work and so forth, but I think that this transitional period to move to a peppercorn rent is the smart, sensible way to do it, just given some of the downsides of going too quickly. But the fact there is now a time limit, new builds are clearly safeguarded, should give us a real source of celebration. These currently still are albatrosses around some people's head. That's why the new information, so people know their rights, is really important.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That's really helpful. I wonder if you'd like to join with me in congratulating Seb Budner, who is the chair of the Residents' Association, for a very large residents' association that has exercised their right to manage in the flats that are right next to and surround the AFC Wimbledon ground.
Can I echo her congratulations? It's a responsibility, but I'd rather someone like he was doing it with his team rather than what's happening previously.
Yeah, he's doing a great job. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Chair.
Just for the sake of keeping issues together for the people in the gallery, can I also bring in Assembly Member Hall on this issue or a different issue? Oh, at the end. OK, fine. Sorry, I misunderstood that. It's very difficult. I know I'm not going to get much sympathy from you. It's difficult for the Mayor because he's having to go back all over the place in terms of these questions, but trying to make sense and get some level of coherency in terms of some of the issues. Let's go then to Assembly Member Boff.
I was interested in the exchange that you had with Assembly Member Cooper. Would you therefore commit to suspending all proposed developments that are using leasehold as the tenure?
Sorry, I didn't know the last part of your question. Sorry, Andrew.
Will you therefore commit to suspending all proposed developments that you are backing with mayoral money that are using leasehold as the tenure?
So just to remind colleagues that as far as City Hall is concerned, we required 990-year leases for some time going forward.
Leasehold.
Yes,
that's not a question about the duration. It's whether or not you will suspend all those developments that are using leasehold as the tenure. Because, to my knowledge, you are actively involved in new developments that have leasehold as the main tenure. And those fine words that you used earlier, reminding us of your commitment to oppose leasehold, could be backed up by you taking action. Will you take that action?
But I've been quite clear, Chair. We've taken several steps to support leaseholders, including requiring 990-year leases for shared ownership homes funded by City Hall.
So it's still a leasehold?
Developing my leasehold guide for Londoners and introducing my service charges charter.
So it's still a leasehold. That's all I'm trying to get to. You don't want to say that you will suspend those leasehold developments.
But the government has given this 40-year period to do so. That's why we've got to make sure we've got investment.
You could do it now. You could do a share of freehold on all those developments. You could convert them to share of freehold, giving those residents control over their destiny but you are still backing Leasehold with mayoral money.
Well, it's not mayoral money, it's government money. That comes with conditions attached from the government.
Really?
What we're doing is abiding by the conditions from the government, working with councils, housing associations and developers to get the housing built in London that Londoners desperately need.
So, under your mayoralty, we will continue with Leasehold. That's basically what you've just said. Do you think it is fair for Londoners to expect your stewardship of a regeneration scheme, an MDC or a new town, to be transparent?
Well, the development corporations that I inherited, the Olympic Park one and the one in Old Oak Common, I think we've shown the importance of transparency, just like we're going to do so with the Oxford Street Development Corporation as well.
Well, that's interesting to know. Your deputy mayor told us that he believes Barking Riverside is a good model of that stewardship. Barking Riverside Limited does not publish its minutes or its decisions, and he has point-blank refused to send me any of the minutes on decisions on Barking Riverside. The community interest company set up to run community services, meets in secret and does not publish its minutes. At its very first meeting in January, the Oxford Street Development Corporation redacted its entire budget and discussed it in private session. Its second meeting was in February, was only held in public for a matter of minutes before going into private session again. And you need reminding, Mr. Mayor, that this MDC is in charge of £144 million of public money. And it's all in secret.
Well, Chair, that was a minute and a half. I'll have equal time to respond, at least, to the various points raised by the member. So the three development corporations that we're responsible for, NLDC, OPDC and Oxford Street Development Corporation, all operate under the same principles of transparency. All of them, by the way, the first two set up under the previous mayor, sometimes have sections in private because of issues of commercial sensitivity. And by the way, so does the TfL board.
They have the option to publish redacted minutes, which they haven't taken up.
As, by the way, does the TfL board and the committees of the TfL board and the committees of OPDC, NLDC and Oxford Street Development Corporation. Now, if the member's raising issues in relation to the time it's taken for those committees to publish minutes, redacted or not, that's an issue we can take up with the relevant development corporations. But to give an impression of conspiracy...
I have done, and I've been refused minutes. What we know, I mean, I'll come to an end, Mr. Mayor, but what we do know is the future under Sadiq Khan is opaque.
Well, let's deal with the past and present before we can predict the future. So the Localism Act 2011 gave mayors the power to set up development corporations. When both NLDC was set up by Boris Johnson, no criticism from the member. Wouldn't say boo to a goose in relation to that.
I think you should go back on the minutes because there was.
Well, he can send me the minutes because he's so transparent. The second development corporation, also set up by Boris Johnson, OPDC. The member again didn't criticise those development corporations. He never complained about how it's been taken away from residents.
Yes, he did. Do your research. I've criticised every single.
I mean,
look, Mr. Mayor, Chair, I was mentioned. They're on a point of information.
No, there is no such thing. There is no. I mean,
there actually is.
The way it works is
you need to do more reading, Mr. Mayor.
He was a pain in the backside to Boris, and you know it. So he did.
The way it works, Chair, is look. A question is asked. I answer it. If the member disagrees, he can come back and challenge me. I can then respond. That's called debate, and it's called good manners, not to interrupt when I'm speaking mid-breath. So let me respond. So there are. I can hear heckling from the future leader of the Tory group. Can you just keep quiet, please? Now, let me do this issue. So two development corporations set up by the previous mayor. No issue around transparency. We've set up one development corporation, Oxford Street Development Corporation, which I think will regenerate Oxford Street. Now, I appreciate the Conservatives that want to regenerate Oxford Street. We do. We're making good progress, and I'm confident that the new development corporation will be as transparent, if not more, than the previous two.
Thank you, Chair, and Eid Mubarak, belated celebration to you. One of the things that I have to listen to almost daily is receiving phone calls and emails from families, from mums, from dads who are suffering because of the Conservative-caused housing crisis, which is the biggest challenge facing Londoners today. Families want ambitious local authorities to work with you to deliver the affordable homes that we need across London. But what we've seen since you got elected was in Ealing, in my borough, which is a Labour council, 5,111 homes up until 2024. Neighbouring Brent, not far behind. Southwark, again, not far behind. Neighbouring Hillingdon, a mere 1,600. Bromley, 744. And Richmond, for whom we have the leader of the council sitting in this chamber, bottom of the league table, 32 out of 32, with less than 300 homes delivered over that period up until 2024. Londoners simply cannot afford for their councils to be unambitious about delivering the affordable homes that they desperately need. How are you going to make sure that every single borough across this city steps up to deliver on this challenge?
Well, he raises an issue that I think is the most serious issue facing our city in the long term, medium term and short term, which is housing. And the lack of affordable housing in our great city. And it's been decades in the making in terms of the lack of supply meeting the demand. The young people in the gallery haven't got a cat and hell's chance of getting an affordable home in London, the way things are carrying on, which is why I've been working with the government to address this issue. The good news is we've shown over the last 10 years we can build record numbers of council homes, more than any time since the 1970s. Prior to the pandemic, more completions than any time since the 1930s, around 10,000 more than the previous mayor who some members idolise and cherish. But there's a problem, and the problem is caused by some councils not carrying their fair share of the burden, responsibility and joy in building homes for their local residents. It can't be right that some councils are doing more and other councils are doing less. And the government's been quite clear. If councils don't discharge their responsibilities seriously in relation to building the homes that are needed, the government and or I will take over those responsibilities, because some great councils, he's mentioned a few, Ealing, Brent and Southwark, Havering is another one. There are others as well. I've done a great job in terms of making sure they're meeting the needs of residents. Others haven't. Waiting lists continue to rise. Those children in temporary accommodation continues to rise. And that's why it's important to address this housing crisis. And I think working with the government and working with good councils, I'm hoping we can do that.
I'm sure that Londoners out there will be really pleased to hear you say that, because when I've spoken to, and I won't name which council leader it was, but when I asked them about what they were going to do about stepping up to dealing with the housing crisis, they said to me, "What housing crisis?" And so some are too polite to say, but for me, I'd say to him, "You're divisive, you're deluded." What would you say to council leaders who are not prepared to do what they need to do?
No, I think it's really important to understand the consequences of not addressing the housing crisis. Young people being priced out of our city, families who want to start a family being priced out of our city. But also, if we're not careful, rather than having the diversity of socioeconomic mix, the joy of London is you can be, a millionaire living, near somebody who's, a bus driver, a porter, a nurse, a teacher assistant. That's the joy of London, right? And so the concern is, if you don't address housing crisis, our city could be hollowed out. People travelling an hour and a half, 2 hours to do essential work. That can't be right. And so this is an issue that should affect all of us. If you're lucky enough to be an owner-occupier, that's great. But actually it affects you if the person who you need to help this city run effectively, your teacher, your police officer, your firefighter, is having to live outside the city. That's a problem for all of us.
And I know that you're looking to develop housing specifically for key workers as well, to make sure that we can retain them in our great city.
One of the things that we are doing is just building record numbers of council homes, but there are some key workers ineligible for those council homes. So we've devised a new form of housing, key worker housing, intermediate housing, and we hope to get going on 6,000 over the next period.
Incredibly welcome. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
A member has been named, so I'm going to call on Assembly Member Roberts.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I was delighted to be named by Assembly Member Mahfouz If he was, you referred to the leader of Richmond Council, who's in this room, and there's only one of us here, chummy. Mr. Mayor, we had a large-scale development which was brought on site in Richmond upon Thames, the Stag Brewery site, which was blocked by the Mayor. As a result of the Mayor's interference, we also lost a secondary school which was going to provide much-needed places in the east of the borough. If the Mayor had not intervened, then that site would be being built, houses would be being provided, and frankly, there would be development going on. So if Assemblymember Mahfouz wishes to raise issues, he should do his homework first rather than just practising his greasy lines and odious questioning to the Mayor. Thank you. And that was not something for the Mayor to respond on. It was a piece of personal explanation.
I'm sure that entirely explains the gap between 5,000 homes in Ealing and the mere 279 properties that he has delivered during his tenure, of which he's been leader of the council since 2018.
There was going to be 1,100 homes built on that site, and your mates intervened, so don't give me that.
OK, right. We need to take a couple of seconds off. Labour, I'm going to take Assembly Member Ina Bakari.
Thank you very much, Chair, because the questioning on family housing is relevant to where I want to go. And I want to wish the Mayor an Eid Mubarak. I hope you had a lovely day. I've been raising my kids here in London. They love the diversity, the food, the museums. But as our Economy Committee report, A London for Every Child, has said, there is a lack of affordable housing and big enough housing for families. Homes in London have fewer bedrooms on average than elsewhere in the country. And under your Affordable Homes programme, 92% of the need for 4-bed homes were unmet, according to the GLA's own strategic market housing assessment. Now, as families are moving out of London, this is causing primary schools to close. Mr. Mayor, will you include specific requirements, which is a key recommendation from our report, specific requirements for homes big enough for growing families in the next London plan, and how will you do this?
Chair, can I thank her for her kind words at the beginning? Could we show her family Eid Mubarak as well? So I'm surprised you're not aware, but the London plan does include policies to support the delivery of homes at a mix of unit sizes, including new family-sized homes. And my Affordable Homes programme will continue to deliver homes of different sizes, including larger homes for families. Meeting families' needs in London's housing stock is not just about building more larger homes, although that's part of it. It's also about building other size homes so families can downsize. And since I became Mayor, there have been record numbers of family-sized affordable homes built on GLA delivery, more than the previous two mayors put together. To give an example of the amount of larger homes funded by the GLA, it's at a record 22%, 3-bedroom or larger. The reason why it's important for there to be GLA-supported family homes is because they're more affordable. Clearly, a market-sized 3-bedroom or larger home is not affordable to anybody in this place unless you're on very high salaries. And that's why that mix in the London plan is so important.
Mr. Mayor, can you just make it really clear? Are you going to make sure that the London plan does have that specific requirement, though? That I just want to have that real clear answer. Yes, it will have that specific, clear requirements made clear on that London plan. Just say yes.
Well, Chair, the London plan already has policies to support the delivery of homes of a mix of units, including family-sized home. We're working on a new London plan, and I'd encourage her to respond to the new London plan consultation, which I think ended a little while ago, towards the new London plan. There'll be various public hearings, and I'll make sure that her report is fed into the process of developing the new London plan.
Well, it's a great cross-party report. All of us agree on the need for family housing and also on the need for kids to have space to play, which is another area of concern because that's why families are also moving out of London. Do you think we have sufficient places for children to play in the capital?
Well, Chair, you mentioned previous mayors, but Nicky Gavron, a previous member of the Assembly, was integral and instrumental, and Andrew Boff has complimented her on a number of occasions in the past about, in a good way. I mean, about on a cross-party basis about play space, and I think it was Nicky that in the first London plan got in play space, and so the current London plan includes the requirement for play space, we're working towards a new London plan, and I'd encourage members to Nicky's legacy to make sure that continues in the new London plan to have decent play space for young people and families.
I mean, there is a bit of an issue with the way you just answered that question, because I mean, absolutely agree with Nikki's work, but even she was concerned about the lack of spaces of play for children, and that's one of the things that we've noticed from our economy report, that there is actually lack of data, and what we're pushing you to do is to make sure that we have sufficient data. Without that data, boroughs are going to find it really challenging to fulfil their responsibilities of making sure there is enough places for children to play. I would love you to now look into making a plan to have a map that has all those designated play spaces in London clearly shown, so that all boroughs and developers can use that.
Yeah, she raised a really good point. Can I thank her for raising that point? I did skim, I didn't not read it properly, I did skim the report. I'm committed to improving the access of all Londoners, because she's right, it's not perfect, particularly to multifunctional green spaces. And just to reassure the member, this will include opportunities for play. Various policies in my current London plan do address play space requirements for new developments. My green space information for Greater London maps some of this information, and in light of what the report says, I've asked officers to explore what further mapping work can be done to capture play and recreation spaces. The point she made, I misunderstood, sorry. We'll do that.
Okay, great, excellent. And one of the things that we really want to see, again, this is from our report, is that evaluation about play space being delivered, but also looking at how developments are enforcing this. I don't think it's good enough. Do you agree?
I think this goes back to a point raised by another member about, I think it's Sadiq Khan, going back to make sure what we've agreed to is the reality. And I think the fact I can't answer the question is a problem, right? Because have we gone back to check? I know of an example when I was on a planning committee years ago of permission being granted for a playground, and actually the box being ticked, but it was never opened. And so I think she raised a really important point about the reality and the experience of what happens after the process. And I think we need to think better about how we go back and check.
Let's make sure that we have a London that has the sound of children playing in our city. That's the aim. A family-friendly city is a family-friendly city is a friendly city to all of us.
We're going to go to Assembly Lord Bailey, who's been waiting patiently.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor. How are you? Listen, a group of Londoners who really feel like they're not being listened to is young people. Since Labour come to power, youth unemployment has gone up every month that they've been in office, culminating in 24% of 16 to 24-year-old Londoners being out of work, which is a 10-year high. So what work are you and City Hall specifically doing to get work for these young people?
The issue of youth unemployment is a serious issue that should worry us all, because if you're not in employment, education or training, that's a problem not just currently, but potentially going forward as well. So we're doing a lot of work, not just with the government, but with councils, job centre pluses and so forth. I'll give them a couple of examples in terms of the work that we've recently started doing with the Department for Work and Pensions. He'll be aware of underemployment, but also people who aren't working. So we're working with a trailblazer initiative to try and get people the skills they need to get into work. We're trying to get more of the apprenticeship levy into London. I think apprenticeships is a way of you can be learning and earning, which is incredibly important as well. We're also keen to make sure we use the adult education funding. He'll aware we have north of £300 million, which we use in terms of jobs being created, matching up, employers complaining about people not having the skills, young people complain they've not got the jobs, matching them up together in terms of the work we do with the AEB. And we've identified a number of sectors where there are jobs being created and linking them up with young people who are unemployed. And the final thing, because I know he wants to come back, is the importance of mentors. So a lot of young people we think need soft skills. Let me explain what I mean. Getting up on time, wearing a tie, shaving, And so we're working with mentors to try and get young people into the habit of leaving home,
work preparedness
going to the office.
stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Spot on. And so we'll be announcing soon some work experience stuff that will address this very issue.
I brought up this same issue with one of the ministers in the House there, and she misunderstood me because she thought I was talking about the cost of families seeking said training. What I'm referring to now in my next question is the cost of those families who cannot afford for their young people not to work. One of the most important things that's happened, the raising of NI has been an absolute disaster for small businesses, particularly particularly the hospitality sector, where lots of young people start their employment journey. So is there anything that you can do to support those hospitality businesses to get young people in? And are you making representations to the government about the effect that the raising of NI have had on the employability of young people?
Look, I mean, we can talk about how we got there, but he's right to remind us the consequences. Park for a second why it's happened, but it has had an impact. You know, it's one of the factors in terms of the cost of doing business. And so we did a number of things to address the issue of hospitality within our powers, obviously. So I announced just this week, it was so successful last year, support to councils in relation to summer activities on their streets and stuff, in relation to supporting them to have events in the streets. That means they can employ more people. You know, if you're doing al fresco dining, for example, you maybe want to take on more staff. Incredibly important. We've also are working with the government to have more powers over licensing. Again, if you're a business, if you run a hospitality, and you can have maybe more hours you're opening. You can have, for example, having facilities on the streets. It means potentially more customers for you, which means you can employ more people. And we're trying to also work with the adult education sector to train young people to have the skills for hospitality. Many people who don't work in hospitality in their later years, their first job was in hospitality, customer relations, the importance of dressing well, so forth. So that first job is really important, and many of the first jobs are in hospitality. So we're doing what we can from City Hall in that area. And the final thing is, if we do get the tourism levy, the overnight accommodation levy, we'll be wanting to support the industry in terms of creating more jobs going forward as well.
And can I cheekily change the topic on you? Assemblymember Bassam talked about lots of local councils not stepping up to build. I think he gave a very simplistic version of events, because councils, as you will be aware, are very different. The demands they have, the space they have. And I wonder, would you be forthcoming in making him understand it isn't just quite as simple as comparing one council to another, because they have different needs. They have different needs, and I've never met. I've done a lot of work with London councils. I've never met a council leader who isn't trying to provide housing for the people in his or her borough.
I think you should meet more council leaders. I think the point that was being made was there are some councils doing a brilliant job. They tend to be Labour ones. And some councils doing an appalling job. They tend to be Conservative or Lib Dem ones. I think he was saying indirectly, vote Labour on May the 7th.
And I think I was saying indirectly that's a very childish approach to the biggest problem we have in London. He needs to get underneath the detail of why councils provide at different levels. And if someone at home is watching this, yes, we have an election to fight, but the most important thing in London has housing. You and I can both agree on that. And I just thought his attack on council leaders was childish and unnecessary.
I tell you what, Chair, why doesn't the member, in the interest of transparency, publish a table of the 32 boroughs, publish a list of how many homes they've built, and also say which ones are Labour, which is a Conservative.
Let's move on. Let's move on. Assembly Member Turrell. Can you? Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good to be back with you. On the subject of housing, I've asked this question before, but it might have been lost in the theatre at the moment, as this chamber sometimes can become. In terms of you've said before your approach to housing is that you want brownfield developed first. In terms of enforcing that, can I just ask, will you be banning developers from building on the green belt if they own undeveloped brownfield land?
For the sake of completeness, I don't be petty. Bexley last year completed 210 homes. Bromley 430 in the interest of Lord Bailey's transparency.
I mean, that wasn't my question, but it's a shame that your Deputy Mayor for Housing recently declined an invitation from Bromley Council to come and visit a housing scheme that would be... So in terms of you wanting to work with the boroughs, I'm afraid that's... I'm trying to think of what the... it would be... That'll be it. But the question was, will you ban developers from building on the Greenbelt if they own undeveloped brownfield sites?
Well, let's be clear in relation to what we need to do over the next 10 years. The government's target is for us to build 880,000 new homes over the next 10 years, even if every
we all know the context, Mr. Mayor. The question was, you say you want a brownfield first approach, so I'm asking about the enforcement of that approach. Will you ban developers from building on the Greenbelt if they own undeveloped brownfield sites? That's a simple yes or no answer. Will you enforce your own policy?
So for the next 10 years, we've got to build 880,000
Will it take 10 years to get an answer to a yes or no question, Mr. Mayor? I mean, this is your policy. I'm quoting your policy at you. Will you ban developers from building on the Greenbelt if they own undeveloped brownfield sites? Yay or nay, Mr. Mayor?
And even if we build, if developers would build on every metre of a brownfield site in London, and by the way, currently,
okay, he's not answering a clear question that was about his own policy.
Sites. 99% of developments are on brownfield sites, but even if every single metre was used up, we would get nowhere near 880,000 new homes.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, Mr. Mayor, and a belated Eid Mubarak to you. And can I thank you for organising Iftar on the Square and all the religious and non-religious events that you organise on the Square and across London, because, of course, this is one of the reasons why London keeps winning these awards, because we are the greatest city in the world. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, in terms of making London a fairer place to live, you commissioned, through MOPAC, a groundbreaking piece of work on stop and search, which reported recently. Unfortunately, what we found is that black Londoners are 48 times more likely to be stopped for stop and search. Can you ensure that stop and search, which is an important tool for crime prevention and legal enforcement, that it actually protects, not victimises Londoners?
Look, can I thank you for her kind comments and also her question. So, stop and search is a really important piece of kit in the police officers' armoury to make sure offensive weapons, knives, guns, dangerous drugs and the like are taken off our streets and our communities kept safer. There are too many examples I could give of the effective use of stop and search, which shows why it's invaluable. But if it's used wrongly, inappropriately or badly, it can lead to less confidence amongst Londoners whose support we need if we're going to reduce crime. We police by consent. That means we rely upon Londoners coming forward to report crime, be a witness to crime, join the police service and so forth. So if stop and search is done badly, it can create to some Londoners feeling disillusioned, alienated and not being pro-police. And that's why it's in all of our interests, to get this right. This isn't just an issue for black, Asian, minority ethnic Londoners. It's not just an issue for black Londoners. It's not just an issue for the police. It's an issue for all of us. Because if a criminal is not being caught because of a lack of effective use of stop and search, that criminal could damage any one of us. So all of us should be concerned by this. And what the Commissioner sought to do is ensure there is, more trust from Londoners, which leads to less crime by bringing in higher standards. Now, I'm not saying it's mission accomplished. There's still a long way to go. This report that she refers to, which was commissioned by MOPAC with the partnership with King's College, is groundbreaking because it looked at every single stop and search taking place over one year, qualitatively in relation to what the grounds were, and it raises big concerns. And it's really important for the police to reflect upon that, not to take away the importance of them using that power effectively, but to learn lessons. And I think when you see the publication of the Stop and Search Charter, when you see the new leadership that's been brought in, the supervision, I'm looking forward to changes being made. There will be annual reports, so we can use this as a benchmark and going forward. We can see if there's been progression, status quo or regression, and that's really important.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know that the report, as you know, the report recommends that the MPS Met publishes a concrete improvement plan. You've spoken about the Charter. Where are we with the improvement plan in terms of your discussions with the Met over this?
So the Met Police understand the importance of getting this right. There has been lots of progress made, and we should recognise the progress that's being made. This is an issue that affects policing across the country. The National Police Chiefs Council, the College of Policing, His Majesty's Inspectorate are all seized of the importance of getting this right. Both the Commissioner, Deputy Commissioner, Assistant Commissioner who came at London Policing Board understand the importance of getting this right. There's more community involvement now in training and supervision. But this report was very important in terms of, Londoners seeing the checks and balances that are being embarked upon with the police. It's really important.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Mr Mayor, once any reopened Met Police investigation has concluded, will you commit as London's Police and Crime Commissioner to obtaining and publishing a full written account of exactly what happened to Morgan McSweeney's stolen phone, including any contact between the Met and Number 10? Yes or no?
Well, Chair, what I can do is make sure that the Commissioner sees the issue raised by the member and ask him to respond to the member accordingly, and the Assembly, of course, for the interest of full transparency.
Will you commit to actually publishing that, Mr Mayor?
I think it's really important to get the advice from experts rather than using a police investigation as a political
to that, Mr Mayor?
Football. Chair, it is important to send to the Commissioner the comments made by the member. I'm really happy for the Commissioner to respond directly to the member, but I'll ask the Commissioner to copy in members of the Assembly as well for obvious reasons of transparency.
Yes, I don't see why you won't commit to doing it as a politician. Why won't you commit? You are the Police and Crime Commissioner. We would like to see it in writing from you.
Which I've got experience of Home Secretaries getting involved because of their politics in operational matters. As a Mayor, I'm not willing to do so. It's really important.
No, they'll be finished it by then. Once the case is finished, then you can comment. You are the Police and Crime Commissioner, let's not forget. So this alleged stolen phone, will you commit to publishing?
You are now out of time, and obviously this may continue outside this meeting. Okay, right, let's take stock. Now, we've made some headway.
We're still on question one.
Sorry, yes. We're still on question one. We are still on question one, but we have made progress. Now, I'm in your hands. I'm in your hands.
Chair, I challenge that as well.
Look, calm down. Is there an appetite to carry on and push on through, or would you prefer a very short break? A very short break. Very short, 5 minutes.
Back at 12:05, Chair.
12:05.
Back at 12:05.
12:05 if we're going to have a break. Thank you. We adjourn.
Okay, we're going to stay with it while they have a break. Okay, so go and grab a cuppa, everything. Please make sure you're subscribed, because when they come back, I'm going to turn on subscriber only mode for the chat. Okay. Thank you very much, everyone, for watching so far. Stay around. It's going to continue in 5 minutes, so just enough time to grab a cup of coffee. Thank you very much. Don't forget, if you haven't already, please hit the like button and make sure you're subscribed. It'd be much appreciated. They should be back in a couple of minutes. Right, here we go, part 2. Don't forget, hit that like and share this out, please. Very much appreciated.
Colleagues, welcome back. Let's then continue with our questioning, and we're going to move to Assembly Member Wilson's question around the IRGC.
Chair, can I thank the member for his question? As an integral part of the Iranian regime, the IRGC have been implicated in appalling conduct in Iran, including mass killings of unarmed protesters, torture, sexual violence, and extrajudicial killings. The IRGC's activity has not been confined to Iran. In Syria, they supported the brutal Assad regime and are alleged to have participated in mass killings. They also support the terrorist organisations Hamas and Hezbollah. In Europe, the IRGC is thought to have operated a mixed model, combining direct state-led operations with state-sponsored hostile activity. They're accused of increasingly hiring criminal networks to target dissidents, journalists and Jewish communities. London and the UK has not been immune to this threat. In October last year, MI5 stated that the security services and the police had responded to over 20 potentially lethal plots. These included surveillance, kidnapping and assassination. I totally condemn this activity and put my full support behind the police and security services who work tirelessly to counter this threat. Due to their illegal activity, several countries and the EU have banned the IRGC. My understanding is that the UK position on prescribing the IRGC remains under the review of the Home Secretary and is complicated by the fact that the IRGC is a state-backed entity. The UK does, however, already maintain sanctions over 450 Iranian individuals and entities covering human rights abuses and state threats, including sanctioning the IRGC in its entirety. The UK can utilise the National Security Act 2023 to address threats from hostile state actors, including the IRGC. Significant recent arrests relating to the Iranian regime have been made, including suspected espionage operations, surveillance of the Jewish community and threats to life. The Iranian regime has also been accused of using online campaigns to sow division and hatred in communities. That is completely at odds with what London and the UK is, and that's why I'll continue to deliver programmes that bring communities together and strengthen communities against hate. However, we can't rely solely on prevention and the pursuit of hostile state actors and must be prepared for major incidents and threats. That's why I asked Lord Toby Harris to commission 2 reviews into London's preparedness for major incidents, and that's why this city is better prepared and protected than ever before, although we're not complacent. Finally, I want to reassure the Assembly that my team and I remain in close contact with counter-terrorism policing in London, including through regular meetings with the police and the London Contest Board.
Thank you, Mr Mayor, and good afternoon. I was expecting to be saying good morning, but obviously we haven't quite got as far on the agenda as we might have done. But no, I really welcome those comments, and in particular highlighting that this organisation, we know about its activity in Iran, its support for and sponsoring of terrorist groups elsewhere in the Middle East, and importantly for our concerns, its activity in Europe and London in particular. And you referenced, quite rightly, the Director General of MI5, Sir Ken McCallum's comments in October that the MI5 had been monitoring and tracking over 20 plots to kidnap, assassinate, cause all sorts of mayhem and carnage on London streets, and that should terrify all of us. There are other connections as well that I think need to be thought of in the round. We have the Islamic Republic of Iran school in Maida Vale, a school which has been rated inadequate by Ofsted since 2016, where children have been filmed promoting extremist and militaristic and anti-Semitic propaganda, including the Hello Commander song and IRGC anthem that glorifies the massacre of Jews. So churning out that next generation of hate, and that's something that's happening here in London and really must not continue to happen. Also, we've seen Lord Walney's report looking at the very murky links between the Iranian regime and UK-based so-called charities, whether that's an overlap in personnel or ideological alignment or the wider security context. Now, so with all that in mind, are you sharing my view that this is currently the single biggest threat that affects Londoners on a daily basis from that angle?
Chair, can I thank him for his question and the intent behind it, which we both agree with in terms of danger to our city. I'm afraid the bad news is there are other hostile state actors who operate in London. I can't share more than what's in the public domain in relation to Russia, in relation to China. So when he says, is this the most dangerous threat, they're all dangerous, and there are others as well. They're also, I'm afraid, what's called, inverted commas, lone wolf operatives who are, inverted commas, inspired by the actions of these. So I'm concerned about the issues he's raised. I want to take away the point he's raised in relation to children. I wasn't aware of that, because we do lots of work in relation to supporting young people. So can I take that away as well in terms of the school he's mentioned and what more we can do in relation to whether it's Ofsted or the council or whatever? I just wasn't aware of that.
Appreciate that as well. So as you're no doubt aware, at the last plenary meeting of this Assembly, we passed a motion unanimously, including support from all political groups, to ask you and the Chair to write to the government and urge immediate prescription of the IRGC. Is that something that you will be looking to do?
I always take seriously the resolutions of the Assembly. Can I take that away? I've not had a chance to see it. Can I take that away? I mean, just to let him know, the United States have prescribed IRGC. The European Union have prescribed the IRGC as a terrorist organisation. And so let me take that away, because I've just not seen the motion. And so I'm more than happy to write to the government when the Assembly, on a cross-party basis, agrees on an issue. And this is clearly of such importance in terms of us coming together as an Assembly. And I think the symbolism of the Mayor and the Assembly agreeing on something is very important. But can I see the details before I agree to do so?
Thank you. I appreciate that as well. And just, I guess, to finish then, you've mentioned that, the US, and many other governments, Australia, Argentina, and our good friends in the European Union have taken that step. And it does stagger me that we still have kind of indecision from national government. And I know when you urged people to support Labour in the general election last year, you wanted to work hand in glove with the Labour government. This is exactly an opportunity where we can do this, to put Londoners' safety first. And I just hope that by doing that, we can encourage the Prime Minister, the Home Secretary, whoever needs to be involved in this, to stop trying to capitulate to these thugs and actually start trying confronting them. So I welcome that in principle support, and let's see where we go from there.
I would just say, Chair, on issues of security, the Conservative government were fantastic working with me as well. So I think we should make this into a party political issue. I mean, it really is a cross-party endeavour when it comes to national security. I just remind the colleague that the issue of prescribing a group, there's a formal legal process. The Home Secretary looks at the evidence and so forth, and there's actually an example of a case where a group prescribed has challenged that in the court. So it's not as straightforward as me saying to the Home Secretary, please prescribe them. There's a process to go through, but I'll look at the motion passed, and I'm more than happy to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we're moving on to the question in the name of Assembly Member Desai, community cohesion during international volatility.
I thank the member for his question. He's probably the only person that didn't come in on question one. So can I thank you for that as well. I'm deeply concerned by the deadly conflict engulfing the Middle East. I want to see an end to this violence as soon as possible, with de-escalation and a return to diplomacy. In my view, now is the time for cool heads to prevail to prevent the conflict spiralling further. Many Londoners will be watching the worsening situation across the Middle East with deep concerns for friends, family and loved ones who are in the region. In London, the Met Police have responded to these events by taking action to protect London's communities, manage public disorder and counter potential state-backed threats. The Met have implemented a series of heightened security measures, including stepping up patrols around key sites in our city, as well as in the most affected communities. They facilitated protest activity and acted when this has crossed into criminality. And they continue to conduct operations to root out hostile state activity, with recent arrests made in this respect. Whilst people have strong views on events in the Middle East, we cannot allow events thousands of miles away to be used as an excuse to turn on each other in London, a city where diverse communities live together. I urge all Londoners to continue to look out for each other, particularly during times of crisis and tension. My Deputy Mayor for Communities and Social Justice is currently convening a series of roundtables with faith and community groups across London. In recent months, discussions have been held with Sikh, Jewish and Muslim communities. I'll also continue to do my bit to counter hateful sentiment by continuing record equaling funding for my Shared Endeavour Fund. This programme delivers work that strengthens communities against extremism, encourages more Londoners to stand up to hate and safeguards Londoners at risk of radicalisation and stops the spread of hateful ideologies. I remain in close contact with the Met and other key partners to help London's communities feel safe and protected during this challenging time.
Thank you for that answer, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, in terms of the NIC grant, the National and International Capital City grant, where are we in terms of negotiations with the Home Office to make sure that London is the Met is properly funded?
So can I thank him? He raises this regularly because it's so important to our city. So we've been underfunded in terms of the National and International Capital Cities grant, a recognition that London needs over and above other police forces around the country. So last year we were successful in securing £63 million of additional funds. That's a 34% increase. But we're still woefully underfunded in the tune of £138 million a year over 10 years, which is the amount of underfunding. That's £1.4 billion. We're lobbying the Home Office. The Commissioner's lobbying the Home Office and Number 10 to explain the importance of this. And by the way, our needs are growing more rather than receding, so it's really important we get some more support.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, in terms of handheld facial recognition devices, can you give an insight into how how this will be used during the mass trial period? And how do you balance utilizing new technologies whilst preserving individual rights?
Yeah, so can I thank you for his question? So just to reassure him, the Met Police are undertaking a 6-month pilot, it is a pilot, of operator-initiated facial recognition, OIFR. 100 officers are involved in this pilot, 100. There's a limited number of teams using it, and it's going to begin, the pilot will begin around mid-May. Just to reassure him and to reassure Londoners, officers will use the technology on their mobile handsets to help identify only those individuals who are engaging with the police, and only when a person refuses or is unable to provide details, is suspected of providing false details, or when entering custody at a police station. Then what happens is the device compares the individual's biometrics with custody images held lawfully to see whether there's a match between somebody who's stopped by the police and somebody who's wanted. We're making sure that the London Police and Ethics Panel and MOPEC are also working with the police in relation to making sure that any concerns are addressed.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Assembly Member Garbett.
Mr. Mayor, were you concerned that the Biometrics Commissioner wasn't consulted on this, that the Met Commissioner didn't consult the Biometrics Commissioner about the use of IOFR?
I wasn't aware of that, but I can take that away.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to the next question in the name of Assembly Member Clark, Creative Industries and Youth Unemployment.
Sorry, bear with me, sorry. Thank you. Can I thank you for her question? London's creative industries entertain, educate and inspire people all over the world. We are leading global exporters of film, TV, gaming, music, marketing, fashion and architecture, rivaling Hollywood as a global production centre. Aside from the joy it brings, the sector is worth £64 billion to London's economy, accounting for around 1 in 7 jobs in the capital. London is bursting with creative young people, and connecting this talent to our creative industries is imperative. Collaboration with industry is essential. That's why I'm working with employers like the National Theatre and Frame Store in the creative sector to boost economic growth and help influence London's skills systems to get more Londoners into jobs in this sector. We're also investing in London's creative industries to open up genuine opportunities for young people across the capital. I've committed £22.1 million to skills boot camps and the Adult Skills Fund, alongside our Creative Enterprise Zones programme to deliver training, mentoring and business support for emerging creatives. We've also invested more than £600 million in East Bank, the largest cultural and education project of its kind, which has already engaged 40,000 young people, helping to ensure London remains a global leader in culture, innovation and opportunity. I want every Londoner to have the opportunity to support them to fulfil their potential, helping them overcome barriers, access skills and training and access good quality jobs. And that's why we're working with the government through the Get to Britain Working Trailblazer to deliver London's Youth Guarantee.
Thank you so much for that. I mean, I'm sure you'll recall our visit when you opened the studio at Barnet Southgate College, which was directly showing what investment can do in the creative industries for our young people. And again, in Brent Cross Town, also in Barnet, we have the Troubadour Studios, which is taking on young apprentices and also giving young people work experience in that industry. So a few good opportunities there, but obviously with 1 in 7 jobs in this industry, we need to keep those doors open to our young people. How is the trial of the Youth Guarantee in London supporting our young Londoners?
Well, first, I remember that visit very well to Barnet Southgate College. I got to meet one of my heroes, Pete Waterman, Sadiq Khan Waterman. I'm of that vintage. He was there with Lord Levy. I was also pleased to meet the young people and the teachers as well. Look, this is a really important initiative we're doing in relation to these trailblazers. We're also working on a youth guarantee, and as I mentioned to Lord Bailey, work experience is really important as well. A lot of young people haven't got the networks or even the aspiration or ambition. They could be really skilled. As we're trying to open those up in terms of not just work experience, mentorship, but also the skills they need to get the jobs. One of the things that I think we wouldn't forgive ourselves for is if we create these great jobs, but Londoners didn't have access to the great jobs. And it's really important to give them access to those jobs. And that's why the trailblazers are so important. And I commend the work of Pat McFadden and Alan Milburn, who really seized of the importance of focusing on younger people as well, because if you can, that's the foundations. If your first job, if you can get a job as soon as you can, that's the foundations for being productive and enjoying life for the rest of your life because you're working, right?
Absolutely. And finally, we all know that across the country that young people are struggling to find work when they leave education. What advice would you give young people who are not in work or training to get the support that they deserve?
I'm really concerned about the issue of young people who aren't in education, employment or training. It's an issue because all the evidence suggests is if the first time you can get a job, you don't get a job, you may not be as productive as you otherwise could be. So we ought to address it at source in terms of why that's happening. Now, the good news is there are fewer economically inactive people in London, and there are more people looking for work. That's a good thing. And we've got to make sure, and the other good thing is we know jobs are being created in London. So we've got to match up younger people with the jobs being created, and that's where skills comes in, given the skills for the jobs being created. The short point I'd make to young people is, this is a city where you can fulfil your potential as long as there's a helping hand. There is no helping hand in terms of some of the schemes I've announced, and literally there is no reason why you can't fulfil your potential with the right support. We're going to give that support going forward. And that's why the youth guarantee we're working on is so important. We should be guaranteeing young people, if you put in the graft, there'll be a good job for you. We'll help you skill up for that job. And by the way, the point I made earlier on is not only does it bring joy to the individual, self-esteem and empowerment, it's great for society if people are productive and contributing. And it means that, frankly speaking, it's great for them, their families, their well-being, but also the tax revenues means we can provide better public services for everyone else.
Thank you so much, and thank you for your work on that. I know that London shouldn't be a city just for owner-occupiers, as you were saying before. It's a great city for everyone of all ages to live in. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Can we move then on to the question in the name of Assembly Member Prince, Good Samaritan Clause?
Can I thank the member for his question? Good afternoon. The safety and security of everyone using London's transport network is vital. That includes the millions of Londoners who use the bus network as well as bus drivers themselves. Bus services in London as well as the DLR, London Overground and Elizabeth Line are delivered by private operators under contract to Transport for London. This means that operational matters, including staffing and employment decisions within individual companies, sit with those operators. That said, I fully recognise and understand the strength of feeling behind this campaign and the ordeal Mark Hayher has gone through. London's bus drivers are essential to the operation of our transport network. They carry significant responsibility every day to keep London moving and to keep customers safe, often in very challenging circumstances, and their contribution is valued enormously. However, as I'm sure the member would agree, legal employment protections are best set at a national level. Frameworks such as the Employment Rights Act and Equality Act already provide important protections, and if further safeguards are needed, these are most effectively delivered through national legislation. If government brings forward proposals, TfL and I will work with them to understand the implications for London's transport operators and how any changes could be implemented effectively. In the meantime, we're taking action to better support and protect all transport workers. TfL provides clear guidance and training and works closely with operators and trade unions to promote a culture where staff can act safely and confidently. But there's more to do. Earlier this month, I convened an urgent GLA-TfL work-related violence and aggression summit with TfL, the police, trade union, workers and contracted partners to develop new and collaborative approaches to improve frontline staff safety. Keeping customers safe is also central to our work. TfL works closely with the police and operators to keep the network safe and respond quickly to incidents. This partnership helps prevent crime, reassure passengers and support victims. On buses, This includes extensive CCTV coverage and 24/7 access to TfL's control room, where the Met Police Service is based. Drivers can request an immediate police response whenever a crime is committed or suspected. While we continue to press for wider change where needed, I remain committed to doing everything possible within London's powers to ensure that transport workers are supported, respected and kept safe at work.
You quoted the law, Mr Mayor. Under the Criminal Law Act of 1967, Mr Hager has not committed any crime, and yet he's still without a job. Do you think that's fair, Mr Mayor, that he was sacked whilst actually doing something that we should all admire, actually?
We all do admire him. I think there's a separate issue about what the Employer Metroline did, which was backed up by the Employment Tribunal. I've not seen I wasn't there for the Employment Tribunal case, but all of us know that if we were a victim of crime, we'd want a bus driver like Mr Hager to be there to support us during those difficult times. I simply can't go behind, because I've not seen the decision-making process. I've in the past not commented on court cases because it's invidious going behind the decision of the tribunal. I'm not sure whether Mr Hager has appealed to the Employment Appeal Tribunal and so forth, but you know, for those of us who weren't there, it does surprise us, both the decision of Metroline and also the tribunal. But I just don't know. I've not seen. I wasn't at the tribunal.
So, yeah, Mark is actually in the. Sorry, Mark. Mark is actually in the audience. Apparently there is no cause for appeal. I'm being reliably informed. So, you know, do you not think, Mr Mayor, that in some way you should lobby on Mark's behalf? Do you not feel that, you know, you're letting Mark down and letting Londoners down, really, by not taking more of an interest in this? I mean, you are a fair mayor in many instances. You believe in justice. I believe that. Do you not think there's some way that you should intervene in this?
I don't want to talk about Mr Hager individually, but just think about the principle in terms of the people employed by the DLR, by London Overground, by Elizabeth Line, by the individual bus operators. There's a number in London. If either the Commissioner or myself was to get involved in every dispute between an individual and the operator.
You could give guidance, couldn't you, saying that, you know, if we've got heroes, they shouldn't be punished, shouldn't you? I mean,
well, the member says it's not hard. I mean, I think it's a slippery slope. Somebody getting involved in issues of employment dispute between a contractor and an employee, or between an employment tribunal.
It's about someone who did a heroic act and is being punished for it. That's the issue, isn't it?
And between an employment tribunal and their claimant and applicant. And so, you know, I've already said in relation to my recognition of the heroism of Mr Hager, not only have I said this, the victim has said this in terms of her gratitude towards the step he took. It's for Metroline and the Employment Tribunal to explain the decisions they took. But it's really important that contractors know the obligations there are upon them. And so whether it's a bus operator, the DLR, the Overground or the Elizabeth Line, the same principles must apply.
Sorry, is that... thank you very much for pointing that out to me. Can I ask the Assembly to agree to suspending Standing Orders 2.9b in order to allow the remaining business on the agenda to be completed? Okay, with Assembly Member Prince now out of time, we now move to the next question, which is in my name. I need to... Oh, sorry, Assembly Member Baker, you did indicate, and in my haste to move on, I forgot you. Over the floor is yours.
How could you forget me, Chair? I'm never going to get over this. I'm going to... apologies. So, afternoon, Mr. Window. Yeah. I just wanted to come in on a couple of issues that have just been discussed. Firstly, I think Assembly Member Prince is raising some really important questions, but we do need to be careful. I hope you agree not to seek to have a situation where criminal law and employment law is the same thing, because there are many reasons, unfortunately, that people may lose a job without committing a crime. But obviously there was a failure of common sense from Metroline here, an absolute failure of common sense to go, what's happened here, and is this really a sensible thing to end up that Mark Hare lost his job? So I'd like to ask you that, but also whether you agree with me on that, and also just, you mentioned the Violence at Work Summit, which I attended, that TfL did. I thought it was a really good event and heard from lots of workers and trade union representatives and engaging with the employers. One thing that specifically had come out of the Transport Committee's work on this and is the request for a specific offence, legal offence for violence against transport workers, which I think would really highlight some of the pressure that our transport workers are under and make it clear that that behaviour is not acceptable. I wonder whether you also support that call.
Can I thank her for not just the work she does in the committee, but attending the summit as well. The other members are present as well at the summit. And she'll have heard the powerful testimony from our 3 transport workers in terms of, one of them was a bus driver, in terms of the impact of abuse and violence towards them, the long lingering impact of abuse and violence towards them, and it affects the family as well. I still, 45 years on, remember the trauma of my family when my dad was a victim of violence as a bus driver. I think employers should use common sense. I hope they always did, in terms of, I kind of rely upon what I've read in the media about Mr. Hayer's case. And, I made this point genuinely. If any of my loved ones was on the bus and a victim of crime, I don't want him to be driving the bus, all right? It's just a fact. I'm not going to, it's just a fact. So I'm not sure what's going through. I just don't know what's going through Mr. Lyon's mind. I just don't know about the employment tribunal case. I just don't know about those 2 things. But what should, what we should do as a consequence is make sure that we protect our bus drivers, we protect our frontline workers. Both the RMT General Secretary and myself pay tribute to somebody who lost their lives just for doing their job, Jorge Ortega, just for doing his job. He lost his life. And so it is important we give support to our transport workers, and we're going to do so. But she raises what I think is such a simple idea, and I've written to the government about this, so has the Commissioner. I was really pleased by the campaign that Usdaw ran in relation to shop workers. So there is additional protection and additional sanctions for a judge if a shop worker is the victim of an injury. Why not a transport worker? They're on the front line doing important stuff, and it'll act as a deterrent, it'll act as a reassurance, but also make sure that the punishment fits the crime in terms of attacking a helpless transport worker doing their job. And so I'll carry on lobbying the government in relation to the right vehicle to bring in the law, because I think it's essential.
Thanks very much. Back to you, Chair.
Now comes to me. I need to go on the clock, and it's the question around measles. Mr. Mayor.
Rachel, I believe Ross has given up on me. Can I thank the member for his question? I'm deeply concerned about the recent measles outbreak in North London and the levels of vaccination uptake in London more generally. London's response to current and emerging health risks, including the latest measles outbreak, is led by UKSHAW, the UK Health Security Agency, OHID, and the NHS and local authorities. These agencies are responding to the recent outbreak and help prevent future ones by encouraging families to check vaccination records, get registered with a GP, be aware of measles symptoms, in addition to setting up vaccination catch-up clinics. The GLA's Public Health Unit officers are in regular contact with partners and have kept me informed of the situation in North London. Measles is an awful illness, which can lead to serious health complications and, in some cases, tragically death. That's why I'm doing my part to support partner agencies, using my communications platforms to ensure London's families know that measles is fully preventable with 2 doses of MMRV vaccine, that the vaccine is entirely safe and free for children in the NHS, and is also never too late to catch up. Beyond reinforcing public health messages, we have also been working to put trusted information into the hands of schools and communities via partner organisations. This includes sharing measles and other childhood immunisation campaigns through the Healthy Early Years and Healthy Schools Network, and circulating UKSHAW resources to asylum hostels and local authorities. It's also clear that information alone is not enough to tackle ongoing challenges around childhood vaccination uptake. Evidence shows that access to services and trusted voices are especially important in reaching communities, particularly those most exposed to health inequalities.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, there are 2 tasks that it seems to me that needs to happen. One is dealing with the current outbreak here in London, and bearing down on that. And the second is to get back on track about the elimination of this awful disease. And in doing that, and I recognise the lead status of UK HSA in leading that task, but I just have a feeling things are slightly not going in the way that should be happening. Now, I have limited advice. I'm a Londoner, and I should be, if I want to know where things are happening, I should be able to easily access it and follow it on. There has been a leaked internal report from the UK Health Security Agency that suggests the actual number of measles cases in London could be higher than the official reports. That's 340 suspected cases in terms of these areas, in terms of that. Now, in one of the boroughs, I think it's in Enfield, I'll be corrected, there are 34 cases, and it's even moving outside Enfield now into Haringey. Now, of course, looking at transport links, looking at patterns of that doesn't take too much to start thinking about. If you look at where our failure of the elimination programme has been, that we're going to have a real problem in East London along that Lee Valley corridor as it comes down into inner London. Now, Mr Mayor, we need sharp elbows here, and I recognise jurisdiction and the primacy of the lead agency. That's fine, and the professionals are right to lead this, and we are right to support them in these activities. And I don't doubt that we're doing everything that we can. And of course, the initial exchange at Health Committee of where it was helpfully suggested using the tube links, but it was the wrong target organisation. But we need a similar programme, as you suggested, with community leaders, religious leaders, both and others, along with a reinvigorated issue about education. We need to move wider, I believe, than the current outbreak areas. We need to get information into other education forums and people that can be pro, so we can hit that twin strategy of elimination issues. Would you not agree that it's time just to review where we are, take stock, and change and adapt tactics to drive this current outbreak down, but to use it as a push for the elimination campaign? Because quite frankly, I'm not sure of the elimination campaign as we go backwards and forwards, in and out, as being as successful. And I do believe, even though we're not the lead agency in tackling this, that we may have, along with London boroughs, some information that could help drive the health authority into a better action and targeted approach that keeps our young people safe. Sorry for being long-winded.
Chair, I understand the reasons why. So Chair, firstly, I'll ensure that the UK HSA, OHID, the NHS, the GLA's public health team and London councils are sent a copy of your words and the way you've said them so they can hear you loud and clear what you're saying. I do want to respond, though, to some of the issues raised, because I think we perform a public health function just as a Mayor's question time. Between the 1st of January this year and the 16th of March, London accounted for 62% of all laboratory-confirmed measles cases in England. That's 167 cases. Cases are concentrated in North London, with Enfield reporting the highest number, 87, followed by Haringey, 17, and Islington, 11. And just to let colleagues know, particularly those watching this, measles predominantly affects unvaccinated children under 10 in schools and nurseries. 69% of cases are in those places, though 25% of cases are in young people and adults aged 15 and over. And here's where your point is so important. London has the lowest vaccination uptake in England. Only 69% of 5-year-olds in London have received both doses of MMRV vaccine. And to give you an idea of comparison, it's 84% nationally. The World Health Organization has a target of 95% vaccinated. On the 26th of January this year, the WHO announced that the UK had lost its measles elimination status due to the high number of cases. And the final point I'll make, which is why your point is so important about public education, some boroughs face significant challenges. At the Royal Borough of Kensington and Chelsea, only 52% vaccination. Hampstead and Fulham, 6% vaccination. Westminster, 59% vaccination. So, Chair, I will take your comments and my response and make sure the bodies I've mentioned hear them loud and clear to see what more we need to do to stop the decline and see that going upwards in terms of vaccination of our young.
Well, thank you for that. Now, and of course, I think most all Assembly members around this table will be wanting to urge you to intervene as much as you can with those other agencies, not taking their responsibility or authority away from them, but urging about, is there other actions that we can be taking? Now, let's just turn to the other outbreak that we face. And even though we think we may be immune from that, we can only be immune from that by being aware of what's going on. So in terms of the addition, in addition of the measles outbreak we're facing, UK HSA has issued a national alert following the meningitis outbreak in Kent. Now, of course, we don't want to spread alarm and fear, but we do want a business-like approach in dealing with some of those issues. Now, in terms of your responsibilities in terms of resilience in London, are you confident that we have got sufficient supplies of antibiotics and vaccines for the meningitis if we are faced with a similar break as we would do in Kent, as Kent has faced?
So, Chair, thanks for your question. I think this is a good example of us learning the lessons from the COVID-19 pandemic. And so we are in close contact with UKSHA in relation to meningitis as well. And if you'll indulge me, I do want to share with the public, not just the Assembly, where we are. So the UK Health Security Agency is continuing to investigate an unusual outbreak of meningitis disease, which has now been confirmed as being due to the Men-B strain. As of the 24th of March, there have been 22 notified cases, with 20 lab confirmed and two under investigation. Very sadly, 2 young people have lost their lives. UKSHA have advised there is currently no evidence of transmission outside of Kent. However, a single case of meningitis has been confirmed in London connected to this outbreak. All close contacts of this London case have been offered antibiotics and vaccinations, so I can give them that reassurance. And the UK Health Security Agency has advised that the risk to the wider population is low. People who are not directly connected to the Kent outbreak and who have not been contacted by the UK Health Security Agency do not need to take extra precautions or change their behaviour. This is a very targeted public health response focused on settings in Kent. There's no complacencies, Chair, but UKSHA have confirmed that the peak of the outbreak has passed. It is reassuring, I just say this as the Mayor, to see the speed and depth of the response from all agencies involved in the outbreak, including UKSHA, NHS, higher education settings, emergency services and local authorities, all of whom I understand work tirelessly to protect communities. We are likely, though, Chair, to see sporadic cases of meningitis in people that are not related to the outbreak in Kent, as we always do.
Mayor, finally, I wondered whether you could consider giving us a regular update. I don't need to say on a weekly basis, but a regular update. If you could combine the two with a report to Assembly members. Look, we've got some other business to do in this period of time, and I don't want to always increase work onto your team or in terms of GLA officers. But I do think it's important that as Assembly members that we are regularly cited of where things are going on this. If we could maybe ask for some of those briefings to come down and you write to each of the 25 Assembly members of just tell us where you think we are on current issues over the next couple of weeks.
Sure, I appreciate we're approaching the pre-election period. Why don't I undertake to write to the Assembly in a week's time in relation to both measles and meningitis, and then I'm guided by the Bureau of Leaders about what you want to do going forwards. I'm cognizant of your point about workloads and stuff, but maybe in a week's time things would be fine. But also, I don't see why on a regular basis every month or 2 months there can't be a report from the GLA Public Health Team about any particular issue that's of concern to them, if that helps.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Let's move on then to Assembly Member James Small-Edwards, land value capture powers to support London's infrastructure.
Can I thank the member for his question? In the 2025 budget, in addition to announcing the government support for the DLR extension to Thamesmead, the Treasury undertook to work with the GLA to look at innovative funding options for infrastructure projects. The previous government refused to do that with us. There are a variety of options for raising finance to support infrastructure and regeneration schemes. Officers from the GLA and TfL are working together to create and refine a list of all possible mechanisms that will enable us to invest in and enhance London's infrastructure. This will include, but not be limited to, land value capture options. Officers are also tasked with carrying out economic and viability appraisals on those options to move from a long list to a shorter and more focused set of mechanisms that we will discuss with the government. I'm also looking to see what can be learned from the best infrastructure financing schemes around the world, as well as setting out how innovative financing mechanisms enable the delivery of the Elizabeth Line and the Northern Line extension to Battersea Power Station. At the same time, officers are engaging with stakeholders across London and in government, making the case for London to capture its fair share of the economic benefit that investment creates. Our ultimate goal is to create a set of mechanisms that help London take independent decisions about infrastructure spending and the delivery of major schemes, including through capturing value fairly from those who benefit from them.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for that response. And you mentioned the tax increment financing that was used for the Northern Line. And that, for me, I think, is a great example of innovative funding modules working really well. I mean, that project came in £160 million under budget. I mean, how often do we talk about transport projects coming in under budget in this country? And was fully self-funded. So I think, you know, is there scope for that to be kind of a shelf model that we can use for other projects? I'm thinking about the West London Orbital, for example.
So he raises a really good point. We've got huge experience in London of helping to fund schemes of national significance. We also, by the way, helped fund the Elizabeth Line. We paid for 2/3 of it. The 1/3 paid for by the national taxpayers was for the bit that goes from Liverpool Street to Enfield and from Paddington to Reading. So we paid for it ourselves in London. He mentioned the Northern Line extension, the huge revenues coming from the additional tax revenues raised because of the business community there. My criticism of the government is that there seems to be a lack of institutional memory in the Treasury. And I've been critical of the Treasury. To give credit to the Treasury, they've now said they'll work with us in terms of innovative financing, in terms of major infrastructure. The first piece of good news is in relation to the DLR extension, but he's right to remind me West London Orbital is unfinished business. The Baker Line extension south is unfinished business. We're having good conversations with the government on both those issues. And by the way, on West London Orbital, the councils in that area have been fantastic in also putting their hand in their pockets at limited finances they've got because they understand the benefits of a West London Orbital.
Yeah, and in terms of your comments on the Treasury, I think it's worth noting just how normal these powers are to have in other countries. I mean, mayors in France, for instance, of cities much, much smaller than this one have that independence to be able to capture the land and set their own transport priorities and enact them without having to go cap in hand to government in the way that, unfortunately, mayors do here. Business London have also advocated for a residential tax increment finance model where you look at, for instance, trying to capture the stamp duty, which is unlocked from the new housing that the transport infrastructure investment unlocks. Is that something we could potentially look at? And I think potentially with the Bakerloo line, it's something which could raise quite a lot of revenue.
Yeah, I'm keen to explore with the government, and they've been receptive, which is unlike the Treasury, in relation to a number of additional revenue streams in terms of infrastructure expenditure. The Northern Line extension was future proceeds of business rates. What about future proceeds of stamp duty we otherwise wouldn't get, but for the new homes we're building? Now, I don't want to take away from the receipts that we need for providing public services. So I'm not suggesting existing residents or existing businesses are paying towards these extensions, although on the Elizabeth Line they did with their business rate supplement bill. And we also want to make sure that there's viability for councils to use council tax receipts to provide public services. So those are the conversations we're having with the government. They've been receptive in terms of both BLE and WLO. And so fingers crossed we get agreement with the DLR Thamesmead this spring, and then we go forward with plans for West London Orbital and Baker Line extension.
Yeah, it's really positive, Mr. Mayor. And I think it's just worth reiterating how common and normal this is in other countries around the world. Thank you, Chair.
The next question is in the name of Assembly Member Cooper, and it's about local power plans and community energy.
Can I thank the member for her question? Community energy is absolutely central to London's transition to a cleaner, fairer, more resilient energy system, and I'm proud that we're now seeing the largest public investment in community energy in this country's history through the government's local power plan. The Secretary of State for Energy Security and Net Zero deserves massive credit for this pioneering and transformative programme. My own local community energy fund is already in its 8th round and has so far offered funding to 194 projects across 65 community groups. The 8th round will provide more than £630,000 to help community groups deliver new energy projects across our city. This will include funding for community groups to help them build capacity and to support more organisations in bidding for any future funding. We're also considering what further City Hall support could look like for the community energy sector in the future, and we'll be closely working with the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero on the development of the local power plan. We're also strengthening wider partnerships. That's why we've signed a memorandum of understanding with GB Energy that will enable us to work together on community energy, share information, and help community groups in London access the funding and expertise they need. My team's also been working closely with London councils to publish practical toolkits and help boroughs partner effectively with community energy groups. And through the Zero Carbon Accelerator, we've identified 330 sites across London that could be suitable for community-owned solar projects, a major pipeline of opportunity for local groups. And just to reassure the member, because she's followed this with interest, the Community Energy Task Force will be reporting back in summer 2026 with recommendations on what more can be done to support the sector and remove barriers.
Well, thanks very much, Mr Mayor, and it's great to see that finally at national level we're on round 8 of the Community Energy Fund in London, and the government is following in our footsteps here, because unfortunately the Urban Community Energy Fund and the Rural Community Energy Fund were cancelled in previous years, and it's now all being revived. Do you have a date for confirming to applicants to the most recent round of the London Community Energy Fund when they are going to hear the outcome of the bids?
So the decision is imminent, but because of the elections coming up, we get into pre-election period. So I suspect it'll have to be after the elections. I'd suggest towards the end of May.
OK, because if it's not today or tomorrow, it's going to have to be after the 7th of May.
Yeah.
So will we expect that at some point in May then? If
yeah,
we're
just explain to those watching this thing and what this is about. Basically, in the weeks preceding the council elections, we aren't allowed to make certain announcements, and so that's all it is. And so I'd be very unhappy if it wasn't in May.
And I presume that there is going to be a schedule for us to have future rounds of the London Community Energy Fund, and you're talking about us having signed an MOU, a Memorandum of Understanding with GB Energy. So are we going to be trying to bring together the London Community Energy Fund together with the work of government so that we can maximise resources coming into London?
Spot on. I mean, she mentioned the great news about the government catching up. There's a change in government. That's why this government's realised how important this is. I think potentially this is massive for us, because at the moment we've been using our finite resources to support community energy. Now we've got the resources of the government in terms of not just GB Energy, but also the announcement made in terms of the local power plan. And I think this is so exciting for this whole area. And the good thing about, because we've got, I think if you like, first mover advantage, we can get going very quickly, and I'm not being critical, rather than other regions of the country who are going to be playing catch-up with what we're doing and stuff. So I'm hoping we can persuade the government, the department, led by the excellent Secretary of State and his team, to make really good progress in terms of getting the money out the door from the government and getting community energy flowing through communities in our city.
Well, I think Community Energy London are looking forward to continuing the partnership with the GLA on this, and I know that Community Energy England and lots of people in community energy groups are very excited about the launch of the £1 billion and the local power plan. Thank you very much, Chair.
OK.
I'm committed to protecting and strengthening neighbourhood policing, which is why my budget confirmed a record-breaking £1.26 billion investment from City Hall in policing and crime prevention measures, and I'm grateful for the member asking the question. This funding will ensure that Met can continue to make the improvements needed to bear down on crime and keep Londoners safe. It's also extremely important to keep people safe on roads and transport. TFL and the Met collaborate to make London safer for everyone. Community crime funding is one of the central pillars of the Commissioner's new Met for London plan. In line with this plan, The Met are making some difficult operational decisions to put more resources in places to build the strongest ever neighbourhood policing. This involves reviewing services the Met have previously supported, which are not core crime-fighting functions. In addition, negotiations have been ongoing between the Met and TfL to renew the Special Services Agreement, which provides for road and transport policing. In line with the Met Commissioner's desire to focus on core policing issues, some of the services provided under this agreement have been withdrawn by the Met, including red route enforcement, which is a non-core activity for the police. As such, the Met has made the decision that approximately 60 PCSOs who have been delivering this service are currently subject to a transfer of undertakings 2P procedure. This is an operational decision and the sole responsibility of the Met. On boosting neighbourhood policing specifically, the Met has now placed borough superintendents in each borough, and there are at least 2 dedicated ward officers and 1 PCSO in every London ward. This should result in a better understanding of local priorities and closer working with communities to tackle issues such as antisocial behaviour and neighbourhood crime. These officers have been protected and other officers have been redeployed for more specialist teams to support frontline delivery. After years of underfunding, this government's neighbourhood policing guarantee will see £45.6 million awarded to the Met. This will help boost neighbourhood police officer numbers with the addition of my support from City Hall.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. We've been contacted as Assembly members by members of the 63 red route enforcement officers. They claim that 90% of their duties consist of high visibility patrols and crime reduction, and red routing ticketing takes only 30 minutes of their day each day. Would you take another look at this? Because we are risking losing very experienced, much valued PCSOs who do not just do red route enforcement in their areas.
I think the issue the members raised raises a number of additional issues. If that is the case, and I don't know if that is the case, then TfL have been paying for a service they're not receiving. Because TfL have entered into a special services agreement with the MPS to provide a service to enforce the red route. The Met Police are saying they want to focus on core policing functions, and so TfL are saying not unreasonably, well, we don't want to pay for that. We want to pay for the red route being enforced, which is why we've got this 2P in relation to this service being provided. So I'll take away the point made by the member in relation to what the PCSOs were doing. What they're paid to do by TfL is clearly to enforce the red route.
Yeah, what we've heard is that somebody had an over 20 years career within the Metropolitan Police that they'd like to continue rather than being tupered out to a private sector parking enforcement agency.
In preparation for Mayor's question time, I saw a briefing from the Met Police Service. What they say, and I'll have to take this away, is the PCSOs, but I'm not suggesting that the people have lied to you, by the way.
No.
The PCSOs have been recruited and trained for traffic enforcement, and so I'll have to take that away because what you're saying is what you're saying.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to the next question. Is also in the name of Assembly Member Roberts on Havering referendum.
I note the time, so I'll forego my answer to allow now supplementary questions.
Do you think, Mr Mayor, assuming that you're not in favour of the referendum, do you think that residents in Havering would prefer that their council tax money is spent on frontline services rather than a pipe dream and vanity project being proposed by the MP for Romford?
Well, the current MP for Romford, he's referring to. I think the question he's got to answer is, how does he replace the services that residents are currently receiving? We know Havering has a larger than normal older population. What's he going to do about the Freedom Pass those residents will lose out on? The 4 tube stations that his residents benefit from, what will replace those? The 3 London Overground stations, the 36 bus routes, the bus stops. What about the 1,500 police officers and PCSOs? How does he intend to fund those? Or the firefighters? Or the 10,900 children receiving universal free school meals because of the GLA support? Or the £120 million funding given to affordable homes? I think we should be asking for a refund. But this MP has form. The promises he made with Brexit haven't materialised, and it's been a catastrophic disaster.
Final question, Mr Mayor. I understand that the rigorous vetting procedures of reform has led to them phoning up even sitting Liberal Democrat councillors asking if they would like to be candidates in the forthcoming elections. Have you been approached by reform to be a candidate in the forthcoming elections?
Chair, the advice I'd give to Lib Dems approached by reform is the advice I give to all young children: never talk to strangers.
Okay.
Thank
At that point, the Lib Dems are out of time. We've one last Assembly Member Ahmed.
Thank you, Chair. Mr Mayor, in the tradition of celebrating London and Londoners, as you probably know, today is the 55th anniversary of the independence of Bangladesh, a proud heritage that I own. Would you like to take a moment to say something?
Can I just although celebrating today, I know the path to independence was a difficult one. I know lives were lost. I know atrocities were committed. But it's really important to celebrate the progress made since 1971. In recent years, there's been turmoil in Bangladesh. I wish the newly elected leader the best going forward. We've got a population in London who are proud Londoners, proudly British, but of Bengali heritage. Those celebrating today, I wish them the best of luck. It shows, by the way, the joys of our diverse community. I would gently say, I don't suggest by you saying this, you're seeking to dominate proceedings today. I don't suggest you're trying to take over. I'm unsure why those who say that are so insecure about their own background and their own identity that they're nervous about celebrating others.
Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Okay, so at this point, can I thank you, Mayor, for your answers? We're now moving to Part B. Can I ask the Assembly to agree the motion which is set out on the agenda in my name, which is that the Assembly notes the answers to the questions asked? I now want to move to item 6, which is petitions. Can I ask the Assembly to agree that Standing Order 3.20 relating to the receipt of petitions at Mayor's Question Time be suspended for the duration of the meeting to allow the petition listed in the reports to be received? Can I ask Assembly Member Boff to present the petitions listed on the agenda in his name?
Do you want to deal with that, Chair? I suggest a warning or leave.
Can I just ask the member in the audience to refrain from interrupting the meeting, or I need to ask you to leave?
She's now threatening violence, Chair. Can we ask for removal?
You're now threatening violence. I'm going to ask for you to be removed. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, let's now move back to our main business. I think I completed the notes that I had to say, so I'm going to now ask Assembly Member Boff to say a few words.
Thank you. The Thames View playing fields and the Ripple Greenway has had an essential role, not just as a recreational area, but as a green space which has expanded to include the Ripple Greenway. However, due to neglect, this is threatened by potential development. The Mayor of London has refused to rule out building on parks in London, and so we risk losing an irreplaceable asset to our community. As our city expands and urban sprawl continues, preserving such green spaces has become even more critical. In the London plan, metropolitan open land is specifically designated to protect open spaces within urban environments. By designating the Thames View playing fields and the Ripple Greenway as metropolitan open land, we can ensure that it is preserved for future generations. We call on the Council to prepare a detailed assessment of the Thames View playing fields and Ripple Greenway, highlighting the ecological, recreational and social value, including any data from environmental surveys and community testimonies. Strong evidence supporting the vital role this land plays will strengthen the case for preservation. And we further call on the Mayor for London to include Thames View playing fields and Ripple Greenway as metropolitan open land.
Okay, thank you for that. Can we refer? There is a report on the agenda about the delegation to me to deal with urgent business. That delegation is in conjunction with the 5 group leaders during the pre-election period. Can we agree to that, please, on item 7 on delegation of authority? Agreed. Yep. Okay, date of next meeting. The next scheduled meeting of the London Assembly will be the Assembly's annual meeting, which will take place at 11 a.m. on the 11th of May, Monday the 11th of May, in the chamber at City Hall. Okay, we have any other business the Chair considers urgent. Now, sadly or rightly, you might say, I have received notification of an urgent motion. There is nothing in that motion that can be ruled out, and therefore I'm allowing it to proceed. Now, in our process, we allow for the member to speak for 1 minute to persuade the Assembly of why it's urgent. Can I just ask you, in the back of your minds, if it is not agreed to go forward as an urgent motion, that you allow under that delegated policy that you've just agreed for the 5 group leaders to get together with the mover of the proposer, who happens to be a group leader, to see if we can move the business during this delegated period of time. So if it's not taken today, it still could go forward in some form with the motion. So we will do some business on it. So I give that commitment if this motion fails in this meeting at the moment. Can I ask Assembly Member Wilson to speak for 1 minute in support of this urgent motion?
Thank you, Chair. I won't need to speak for the whole minute at this point, but just to suffice to say that I appreciate it's slightly unorthodox for motions to be considered at MQT rather than plenary, but the reason I think this is an urgent motion and should be considered urgently today is because the news only broke last night regarding this doctor strike, and we do not have a suitable plenary meeting between now and the date at which that strike is scheduled to take place. That's why I think it's important for us to discuss it, take a view on it now, and I'm in colleagues' hands as to whether they agree. Thank you.
Okay, so without debate, but I think I can just remind members that if this motion is not passed by the Assembly, there is an opportunity that we can deal with it through the process that I've outlined in some form or another. Right, so we have to move to the vote in. Is that?
Yes, please, Chair. So can we now see votes in favour of basically proceeding to debate and considering the motion? So votes in favour of considering the motion. I'm going to start at this end. 1, 2 in favour, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 votes in favour of considering. Can I see those votes against, please? That is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 votes against. That falls, and I believe the Chair has indicated that perhaps the Assembly will explore dealing with that.
Okay, so what I'd like to do is talk to the proposer of the motion and the 5 group leaders. We can do it originally by email, that we treat this urgently and see if we can come together to find a way forward to deal with this issue outside on the delegated authority that we will take it forward. Okay. Right, there being no any other business...
Chair, sorry, can I propose a vote of thanks for your chairmanship over the past year? I think you've done an excellent job.
Thank you very much.
And I want to hear from some of the opposition.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay. Can we have a vote on whether we vote on that?
Thank you very much for that. There being no any other business, let's close this meeting. I'll wish you well I wish you well in certain factors in the coming weeks, and of course I want you to be miserable by a certain date if you're not a member of my group. Okay, I wish you well. Thank you.
Well, there you go. That got quite interesting in the first half. I want to thank everyone for watching all this time. The new subscribers, new members, welcome along. And we are going to disappear now. That's well, God, 3 hours 20 minutes been going. Please share this out with your friends. There is going to be a part 1 and part 2 video released, purely because I can get it uploaded quicker than this live stream gets processed, and I can make shorts from it to bring people to watch the other videos. Yeah, so don't worry about it. You'll get to see them anyway. So big thanks for Blackthorn, Michelle, Benny's. Sorry if I missed anyone. There was a load watching earlier. Michelle, Misty, just going back through a few of the regulars there. And yeah, it was quite an interesting that first half, let's say. But as usual, it's smoke and mirrors is the answers all the time. One day we might get a mayor and a prime minister will actually have the balls to answer direct questions truthfully. But I'm not going to hold my breath on that one. Okay. Anyway, I'm going to get part 2 uploaded of this now. And then I might have enough time to nip up to the shop or maybe into the pub for a nice relaxing cold pint of beer. Yeah. And relax and wind down while the sun's out. Yes, Michelle, they do indeed. Right, anyway, thank you very much, everyone. And we'll catch you all soon. I'm going to be releasing videos over the next few days. We'll see what happens from then onwards, all right? I might just hang my boots up. Benny's, thank you. I might hang my boots up and retire, as they say. Anyway, that's food for thought. Right, catch you all soon. Take care. Have a great weekend coming.